Whether you're a diehard sports fan, a hopeless romantic, or a comedy aficionado, the Xfinity 10G network was made for streaming it all. Worry less about buffering when streaming your favorite shows, movies, or live sports, and enjoy a better way to watch. Xfinity gives you a reliable connection for streaming, plus all the entertainment you love all in one place. Fear not, because now you can finally sit back, relax, and stream your favorite entertainment and sports like never before with the Xfinity 10G network.
Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. I'm your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. It is a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today as we jump on board for the annual Granddaddy of them all, State of the Wild 2022. A lot of you know the classic routine, but for those of you that don't, maybe you're new to the show within the last year, in State of the Wild, we often put a bow on the previous season, of course, 2021, 2022, and, from start to finish, without rambling too much, I hope, but you never know. There's all kinds of stuff to kind of zoom over, kind of scan over the regular season, the ups and downs of it, and, of course, we finish up that with the MVP, biggest disappointment and biggest surprise, some easy choices, some not so easy choices. Of course, I'll dig into Twitter for that because I put some polls up with some nice answers on there as well, some responses from those of you out there. So that'll kind of be cheating ahead before fan interaction. Fan interaction will be a whole different entity there. So that's kind of going to be the main idea of the first segment, generally speaking. Second segment, we'll kind of look at we're going to look at the future, the draft, free agency and all that. We'll recap the Stanley Cup final and all that, and kind of what happened even before that, I believe, into the conference final. Because, heck, the last episode I think the Calgary Flames just took a 1-0 lead in the second round. That was one of the highlights of that show, and I was catching up with the playoffs. So I'll kind of very briefly catch up with what happened there. No, the Calgary Flames did not win the Stanley Cup. A lot of you know that already. So at the end of the day, at the time I'm recording the first segment here, the Colorado Avalanche are up 3-1. So make note of that. Kind of piecing things together as we go. So let's try to jump into that whole deal now with the putting a bow on the season. As things finally back to normal again with the National Hockey League, for the most part. Of course, the NHL draft now moving into early July versus late June. Used to be the day after. Like the NBA draft would be like Thursday the 24th, 23rd, 25th, whatever, of June. And then hockey would be the Friday and Saturday right after that. That was kind of cool. It made for a busy weekend and all that for keeping up with sports. But at the same time, in the podcast, of course, for both shows. But, at the same time, it was really fun, very enjoyable. Now, though, I guess it's an excuse to take more time off. So that's the good part. Moving into July here with the draft. But regular start to the season in early October. So always got to love that. October 2021. Of course, it's slightly later than normal. A lot of times the regular season would start around the 4th of October. That's when the preseason started. 4 quick preseason games against Colorado, possibly the future Stanley Cup champs. Interestingly, the Wild won 3-1 in that game. Interesting, 3-1, like Colorado was up 3-. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. At least not too much. And the Wild were 3-1 in the preseason, beating Colorado, St. Louis, Chicago, and then losing 5-1 in the final preseason game. Maybe that was the one where Rodin got in trouble basically for being late. Kind of funny. Wild opened up the regular season with a 2-1 victory over the Anaheim Schmucks. Now the Anaheim Ducks on the 15th of October. We'll look at that briefly. I try not to babble too much. Nice to see Kevin Fiala scoring early. And of course, Kirill Kaprizov also scoring. Kevin Fiala actually was the first goal scorer of the regular season for the Minnesota Wild on the power play, ironically, considering what that would be during the course of the year. Zuccarello and Kaprizov assisting. And then Marcus Foligno would ultimately put the Wild up 2-1, and the victory, Dumba and Brodin. Well, this was only with 8 seconds remaining. Minnesota Wild get the job done. Minnesota very clutch during the season. Cam Talbot only allowing 1 goal on 29 shots. Very cool. But Fiala and Kaprizov would have very slow starts to the season, but Fiala would score very early here, at least opening the season with his first ever goal. Nico Sturm, who might win a Stanley Cup this year, was on the Minnesota Wild at this time, wasn't traded until March. But other than that, the roster pretty much stayed intact for the most part, with the exceptions of Nico Sturm and Capo Kakinen, basically there. But a win over the Anaheim Ducks, with Anthony Stolarz as the goalie for Anaheim, facing 43 shots. The Wild ended up winning with 8 seconds remaining in the game. Marcus Foligno with the game winner, and he'd have quite a few clutch goals along the way. The Wild would then beat the Los Angeles Kings, also in California. These are both on the road in California. Remember, the very first, some of us old-timers now, it's been long enough for the Wild to be, for some of the original fans to be old-timers, believe it or not. First ever regular season game in Wild history was in Anaheim, so kind of ironic. Of course, that was a loss, unfortunately. Going to California usually means losses, at least historically, but the Wild would open up the season 4-0, beating Anaheim twice, Los Angeles on the Anaheim and LA on the road. Very cool. 4-3 win over Anaheim a week later after beating the Kings 3-2. 6-5 epic battle over Winnipeg on the 19th. We'll look at that very briefly, very shortly. Maybe we'll look at the LA game just for the heck of it, as the Wild would ultimately pull away after giving up an early goal, which happened quite a bit against Minnesota in these games. Not early, but would give up the first goal, and Minnesota would roar back and say, no, not so much. That was always a fun thing and a great feeling. Kulikov would get his first assist of the season, but ultimately, the Wild would end up winning the game. Ryan Hartman, Victor Rask, officially would put the Wild up 3-1 after Goudreau had his season's first goal. Kaprizov would rack up some assists in these games, but never would score until 8 games into the regular season. 6-5 epic battle in St. Paul. Gotta love it. The home opener for Minnesota, going down 1-0. Kyle Connor with his second goal. Zuccarello with his first. Kaprizov now with 3 assists at this stage, assisting on Zuccarello's goal. And again, I'll try not to babble too much about something that happened several months ago, but it was an entertaining, epic battle. This is when you first really saw the Minnesota Wild, what they could do in the extra man situation. That was so cool. Minnesota Wild would go on the power play, trailing with about 5 minutes remaining. Marcus Foligno would score on the power play, which was second goal of the season. Joel Eriksson Ek, and there it was, the whole sixth man, the extra skater situation. Kirill Kaprizov went out with 4 assists and no goals at this stage. Joel Eriksson Ek with the game tying goal to put it into OT, and then Joel Eriksson Ek with the power play goal to win the game in overtime pretty quickly there with about a minute and a half in. And Joel Eriksson Ek would get his first career hat trick in the home opener, and it was so damn exciting. Again, Joel Eriksson Ek scored earlier in the game with about 2 minutes remaining in the first period. Very, very exciting night. Joel Eriksson Ek getting a hat trick. The Wild are 3-0, and all was right with the Wild at the very least. Maybe not the world, but all was right with the Wild at the moment. That was pretty freaking cool. 3-0 start to the season. Ultimately, again, 4-0, beating the Anaheim Ducks in a 4-3 game, and then hosting the Nashville Predators and getting doused, which was a commonplace thing. 5-2 loss to the Nashville Predators in Xcel Energy Center. Our first loss of the season was definitely a reality check, and it felt like that's what Nashville was to the Minnesota Wild the whole damn season. A reality check. Nashville, like you think of them, they're this mediocre team that wasn't a playoff team anymore. They won the Western Conference in 2017, and they've just kind of quietly dropped off over the years. Well, they're dangerous against the Wild again. The Wild would have some epic battles with this team over the last 4 years, but this was not so epic, going down 5-1. Late in the second period, Tanner Janot getting his second goal of the season, and arch nemesis Philip Forsberg, well, one of them, for Minnesota over the years. Nico Sturm would score his first goal of the season with 3 seconds remaining in the second period to put the Wild down by 3, and that would remain the final score, unfortunately, as blocked shots and good goaltending by Connor Ingram of all people would stop 33 of 35 shots, save percentage of 95 almost. And Kaapo Kähkönen, unfortunately, a nasty start to his season, giving up 5 goals. You feel bad for him. And then everybody's like, oh, see, he's not that good. And you got me in the background saying, yeah, he's good. He's better than people give him credit. He's not a superstar, but maybe he'll continue to develop into a better and better platoon goalie at the very least. Wild would then end the losing streak at 1 right away, beating Vancouver 3-2, and then you lose to Seattle in the very first matchup in the history of these franchises. So, let me get this straight. Vegas starts off super good with their franchise, but the Wild, for some reason, dominate the hell out of them, which is funny. Vegas first place their whole first season, almost win the Stanley Cup, almost, until Washington said, screw you, yeah, you won game 1. And then they got a 91 Bulls and won the next 4. or a let's be more accurate, let's be more sport accurate here, 93 Montreal Canadiens. They won the first, they won the first game, the Kings did, and then the Canadiens won the next 4. And we're still waiting for Montreal and anybody else from Canada to win a Stanley Cup since. I'll digress. Where I need to be? 4-1 loss at Seattle. Again, a crappy start against a not very good team, even though there's some familiar names on that club. Much more familiar than on the Wild's first roster, in my opinion. At Colorado, 4-1, which might end up being the final of the series. I hope not. I hope not. Maybe we'll see Colorado win tonight as I'm recording this. Who knows? We'll see. Or not. I don't think I'll be doing the show for that long, all the way through the game. But 4-1 loss at Colorado and blah, blah, blah. That ended the month of October. Wild would open the month of November with a 4-0 record. 4-0 start, beating Ottawa 5-4. Pittsburgh 5-4. All right, State of Hoppy there. Scott out of Edina there. One of the hosts of the Soda Pod, of course, with Isha Jerome, who's out of Vancouver, British Columbia, or Vancouver Island to be exact. Being a Canadian, by the way, he's from Vancouver, British Columbia. That's an inside joke. Sorry, just in case he's listening, which he might not be. I think he's got enough on his plate and listening to old Brave the Wild, Mr. Chiseled Veteran, as they call me, I suppose. 5-2 win over the New York Islanders. It's like the Islanders lost their identity this year, didn't they? They lose 2 Eastern Conference Finals to the Tampa Bay Lightning in fairly close fashion. In fact, a 1-0 Game 7 loss. And you can just see the looks on their face. They're just heartbroken. Literally just heartbroken. And then this year was as heartbreaking as it gets. Just awful season. Was it the Zach Parise syndrome? I don't know. I'm just kidding. I mean, some people think that he didn't help. I don't know. Well, at this stage of his career, no. I don't think he brought a bad attitude there. I'm guessing no. Suter, I don't trust him further than I can throw him. We might agree politically, me and Ryan Suter, but that's about it. Everything else, locker room wise, I don't think I agree with Ryan Suter at all. We'd be like enemies, frankly. Yeah, we would be enemies. There's no doubt. 5-2 win versus the Islanders. 5-2 win over the Arizona Coyotes, both on the road. Actually, no, the Arizona game was on the road only. And then we start losing to Vegas this year, again, just like we did in 7 games last year. Almost had them. Last season anyway, the season before. And then the Wild get their first ever victory versus the Seattle Kraken in a fairly entertaining battle in Seattle, where a guy by the name of Rem Pitlick would not only score his first goal, but his second and third as well. Pretty damn exciting. Rem Pitlick gets a hat trick. I believe it's his first game of ever, and he gets a hat trick coming up for the Minnesota into the National Hockey League and all that. So cool. So cool to see Rem Pitlick joining his new team for the first time. Former Golden Gopher. I was a big fan of his as a Golden Gopher not that long ago. And there he is, getting a hat trick for Minnesota, beating Seattle. Wild ultimately would win 4-2. Marcus Johansson, of course he's going to score a goal against Minnesota. Of course he is. With all those goals he scored for us the year before, you're not surprised he scored? Come on, he's a star. Come on. Wake up. Empty net goal very early, man. Less than more than 5 minutes remaining for Seattle. Wild would get an empty netter. Alex Wenberg would make it 4-2 to make it relatively interesting with 2 minutes remaining. But Minnesota would beat the Seattle Kraken for the first time, evening up that record for a team with definitely familiar names, especially Philip Grubauer. A lot of people imagined him hoisting the cup with Colorado one of these years. Jordan Eberle, former Islander and talented guy. Ryan Donato, he's a stud. No, I'm kidding. He's okay. Brandon Tanev is all right. Mark Giordano, the captain of the Flames before. Adam Larson, an okay player for the Edmonton Oilers, but at least a name. And Vince Dunn, an okay defenseman for the St. Louis Blues. And Carson Soucy, former Minnesota Wild. Yes, a familiar name and a guy I wouldn't mind having on the team if not for his cap hit being relatively high, unfortunately. Because in this day and age, even Carson Soucy is a bit of a cap hit, unfortunately, because of the whole situation with Parise Stewart. It is what it is. I'm not against the buyouts. I don't hate Chuck Fletcher for making the move. I hate the agents and the players for demanding term that long. I think it's ridiculous. Because, well, it's a combination of things, the agents, the players, and then the owners saying, oh, yeah, well, let's see if they'll match this. Let's see if Pittsburgh and Detroit match this. So there was always that reason as well. So it was kind of a combination. The whole thing sucks. I don't know. It was just not necessary. They didn't need to do it. Woo-hoo. They were getting like $1 million a year later on. And then, of course, you spread out the cap hit to prevent massive cap issues early on when the guys got their big bucks when they were younger. So, interesting situation. And, I don't know, it's cap manipulation. The whole thing should have just never happened the way it did. Bull crap. 7 years is a long time. Even 8 years for those guys. That might have been a little better. But, oh well. Anyhow, the Wild won in a place called Climate Pledge Arena. All right, well, they won in Climate Pledge Arena. The Wild did their first win of the season, handing Seattle their 10th loss. Let's keep moving. 10-4 to 4-10. Kind of funny how it was reciprocals there between Minnesota and Seattle. Wild continued their strong start to the season with that win. At least Rem Pitlick, very exciting. 4-1 loss against San Jose. For some reason, the Sharks were kind of a thorn in the Wild side this year, for whatever reason. It's not because Capo Kakkonen would get traded there later in the year either. They just were, I don't know, they just were a little better this year, but not good enough to make the playoffs, whatever that means. And, Brent Burns isn't as good as before, and blah, blah, blah. Let's just keep moving. No need to get into every single game. I'll be here all night. A 7-2 win over Dallas. That was awesome, considering how the Wild used to lose games 7-2, 7-1 to Dallas in the past with Darcy Kemper in that. Ironically, the guy who might end up holding a trophy very soon here. A very large silver trophy with names on it. With familiar NHL stars and entire rosters on it. That one. 5-4 loss to an excellent Florida team. A 5-4 loss to another excellent Florida team. So it was a Florida two-step. The Wild go 0-2 in Florida, which didn't surprise anybody. Even though the Wild have had some weird success versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Wild would win 4-2 versus Tampa a week later, late in November. But a 7-1 demolition is the highlight of the month over the hated Winnipeg Jets, who might end up getting Barry Trotz here. Wonderful. In fact, yeah, that sounds like that's where we're heading, which would be really bad. Kirill Kaprizov went from no goals to 6 goals. It was like overnight practically, and Fiala would have his 11th assist. He got his 6th goal in this particular game, did Kirill the Thrill. He was for real, which was nice at the time. 7-1 demolition. Of course, his goal was late, was Kaprizov's, but whatever. It's nice to see it happen, and he had it was a 4-point game, which became more of a thing this year, and that's why Kirill suddenly went from a guy who wasn't scoring early in the season to a guy who was on pace for 100 points, and he was on pace for over 100, he was on pace for 100, and he never truly got off pace to 100 points, and then he got super hot at the end of the year to make it 108. Not 103, 108. So very damn exciting, and Fiala would go from a guy who was really quiet and frustrating for the first couple of months to end up with 85. Pretty damn crazy. Both all-time records for Minnesota Wild history in point totals for the season. Again, 7-1. It's just, you look at that, and it's just a wonderful highlight. Again, the 4-2 win versus Tampa was pretty exciting as well. 2-time defending champions and trying to go for a three-peat this year. Corey Perry, who won a Stanley Cup very, very early in his career with the Anaheim Schmucks, and trying to get one with the city that hosts the Tampa Bay Bucks. Yeah, that kind of rhymed, didn't it? But yeah, trying to be a third time's a charm here much later in his career, being on the losing end versus Tampa versus Dallas, being on the losing end last year versus the Montreal Canadiens. I still can't believe they went to the Stanley Cup final. The Montreal Canadiens went to the final or finals last year versus Tampa, which wasn't that difficult of a matchup for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But it was kind of a North Stars-like run. Corey Perry lost with those two teams to Tampa, so okay, you can't beat them, join them, and watch him lose 3 in a row. That would suck. But at least he did get one very early in his career in 2007 with the Anaheim mighty, or not so mighty, Ducks. They were very mighty that year. Oh yeah, they kicked our butts in the first round, didn't they? Yep, hopefully Corey Perry can get a cup late in his career for his sake. Come to Minnesota, Corey, and let's get it done, eh? Let's get it done, eh? We're a shoo-in next year. Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be competitive. Bill Guerin says yes, we will. He's making that approach coming in. He doesn't want us to be like, oh no, we got the cap hits now. So I don't know. I'm not real confident, but I mean we got the cap hits, so we gotta kind of like hope for the best here. No, he's like, no, we're gonna be fine. So we'll see. The Wild open up the month 4-0 again. That sounds familiar. Is there an echo? The Wild beat a team in Toronto, which they never beat for some reason. Yet Toronto never does jack squat in the playoffs, ever. Come on, Toronto. Years ago, they got to the East Final, or Prince of Wales Final, and it ended up losing, unfortunately, later on. They almost went to the Cup Finals years ago. I remember that was back in the mid-'90s. That would have been cool, but Toronto didn't make it that year either. Minnesota ends up winning in a shootout in this one versus Jack Campbell, former Los Angeles King, Austin Matthews, who ended up, finishing very strong at the end of the year. Yeah, congratulations to him, by the way. We'll leave that where that is. Very, very nice team, but the Wild end up beating them in a shootout, facing 39 shots, him being Cam Talbot, and, stopping 39 shots out of 42, and then Jack Campbell stopping 37 of 40. Very epic, fun battle between the Minnesota Wild and the Toronto Maple Leafs. It would have been a nice Stanley Cup final, but unfortunately, we couldn't get out of the first round. Yeah, that's a problem. Neither team got out of the first round, did they? Come on, man. You beat Edmonton 4-1, which would have been a wonderful playoff series for Minnesota. Maybe we'd finally get through the first round if things were seeded correctly, or seeded with 8 seeds anyway. Beat San Jose 5-2, lose in LA 2-1, very boring, 6-4 loss. Good game, but a loss in Las Vegas. Sounds familiar lately. And then the COVID bullcrap hit, and the Wild didn't have any COVID bullcrap, but these other teams did, which is really annoying. So it smushed up the Wild schedule later in the year. Postponed versus Carolina, postponed versus Florida, and suddenly the Wild can never beat the Buffalo Sabres. 3-2 loss on the 16th. It'd be the second last game of the month, because after the Vegas game on the 12th of December, 14th versus Carolina canceled, like I just said. 18th versus Florida canceled. Then a 7-4 loss in Dallas. Yuck. And then Detroit canceled. Winnipeg canceled. There were some days off in between anyway. The Wild would have had the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st all off anyway. Merry Christmas and all that good stuff. But still, man. And then there were still some more postponements going on. Again, these other teams had their epidemic or pandemic or whatever the heck demic was happening during the course of time there. One way or another, a lot of guys were getting COVID-19 or Omicron or I don't even know, something. They're getting some form of COVID-19, basically. COVID-22. Okay. 6-4 loss versus the frickin' Blues, when the Wild never beat anymore. Yeah. It was nice when we used to beat the Blues, wasn't it? Wasn't it fun? Tarasenko, Mr. Renaissance Man, Mr. Comeback Player of the Year, or something like that. 14 goals already at this stage. Relatively middle way through the year, but still impressive. Ryan Hartman with 15, which was even more surprising. And Kaprizov already had his 25th assist at this stage, but still, a loss is a loss, and it was kind of a thrashing, unfortunately, which was really annoying. And Jordan Binnington, what the heck? Jordan Binnington, who stunk most of the season, but was kicking our butts most of the way, for the most part anyway. He'd still give up 4 goals, but in the playoff series, it wasn't a good day. Again, postponed versus Ottawa again. Like, you can't go to Canada, can't do this in Canada, can't do that in Canada. You can't breathe in Canada. You just can't do it. You can't go. You can't do it. Don't do it. Don't even go to Canada if it's going to be like that. And I like Canadian teams, damn it. I like Ottawa. I like Winnipeg. I like Calgary. I like Edmonton. I like all the Canadian teams. I even like the Vancouver Canucks sometimes. Yes, I know. They used to be an interesting rival for us. But, yep, all the Canadian games postponed. Ugh. Canadian games. Okay, sorry. Well, all the Canadian teams. 3-2 loss or victory over the Boston Bruins. That was nice in Boston in TD whatever the heck it is, TD Ameritrade whatever Garden. Matt Boldy would score his first goal of his career, coming back from the ankle injury, getting revved up in Iowa, and here he is at the Minnesota Wild. Yes, sir. In the month of January, there he is. And a guy who probably could have been much higher in the Calder Cup ratings and all that. He wound up finishing 8th place. Very good chance he could have wound up finishing 1st or 2nd. But it is what it is. Delayed start to the season for him with the broken frickin' ankle. Dang it. It's a damn shame. And Matt Boldy, at the age of 21, to be as good as he was. You know what I'm saying? That was really impressive, actually. Awesome season for Matt Boldy. He deserves a hand, definitely. Ended up getting the, kind of put-away goal, you could say, 3-1 lead, even though it was midway, but the Wild ended up winning 3-2 anyway. Game-winning goal was very early by Nico Sturm on the power play. Nico Sturm would have some nice moments here and there. Taylor Hall, a very expensive 7 goals, would get his 7th goal of the season early, but the Wild ended up winning the game 3-2. As you know, Kirill Kaprizov now at 14 goals at this stage of la saison, as things were still just getting going for Kirill Kaprizov in a lot of ways in early January. I won't say the number. It was just that day, but not the actual day. The Wild would actually beat the Washington Capitals, which is another thing that almost never happens. In a shootout, though, the Wild would end up getting 2 goals, and the Capitals would get no goals. And a nice, impressive victory for Minnesota. I swear, during the course of the season, every time Kirill Kaprizov or Fiala were in the shootout, it was so damn impressive. Just the flick of the wrist and the release and all that, it was so cool. They didn't have to do all this fancy-dancy stuff. They didn't have to stop skating and then stick handle for like 10 seconds while they're just literally gliding at 0.5 miles an hour. Hey, he's still moving. Like that bullcrap that was happening was it Ryan Johansson, son of a biscuit, with the Nashville Predators. That was so annoying years ago. And even Patrick Kane was guilty of that kind of horse crap. Might as well work where I work and get away with it there too. Anyhow, that's dirty laundry's been aired now. 7-3 win for the Minnesota Wild over the Ducks, again after some postponed games, versus Winnipeg and Edmonton. Wild would lose again to Colorado. God. But then a little sweep there, a home and away sweep versus Chicago on the Friday-Saturday deal. 5-1 win in Chicago. Impressive. 4-3 win at home in Xcel Energy Center, and then an 8-2 victory on the 24th of January. 8-2 victory over Montreal. Kind of gives me old memories when the Wild lost 8-0, or the North Stars lost 8-0 back in 92-93. I think that was the final season, or was it 91-92? 8-0 ass-kicking by the Montreal Canadiens, in the Forum. Way back in the early 90s, North Stars were in those black uniforms that said stars on them, and it was 8-0. I was watching it at my parents' salon. I don't know why I remember all that stuff, but I'm kind of weird. So, I don't know. I can remember, I can remember a lot of little things like that, but this one kind of reminded me of it just going the other way, thankfully. Minnesota with an 8-2 win versus Montreal, and it felt like $1 million. Fiala was just starting to get going here. Really starting to pick up the heat a little bit because, well, there's the line. Goudreau, Boldy, Fiala. There it is. I mean, it's that simple. And also Boldy getting his 3rd goal of the season with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. Pretty cool there with those 3 guys working together on the power play. Fun stuff, indeed. So this was a very fun night. Rem Pitlick will get his 8th goal after all these weeks later. Rem Pitlick only his 8th goal after scoring 3 very, very early on. Pitlick's a nice little player, but unfortunately did not fit with the Minnesota Wild long-term plans. And forgive me for saying this, I guess we see why. He's okay. He's okay. I don't know, and that's too bad. I was a fan, but I don't know. Maybe I was wrong a little bit. Still ended up having an okay season. Did Rem Pitlick. Wild would beat the New York Rangers, who almost went to the Cup final this year, 3-2, and then a win against the New York Islanders, both on the road, actually. Quite impressive run here. As Minnesota was red hot, ending the month of January. Just win after win after win after win after win after win after win. 27-10-3 to end the month of January. on a very, very, very high note, winning the last 5 games of the month after losing 4-3 to the Avalanche. In fact, gosh, they only lost 2 games the whole month. Of course, a couple of postponements, but still an unbelievable month of January. And 2022 would prove to be the most sparkling season in Minnesota Wild history in terms of regular season. February was a little bit of a different story as the Wild's goaltending started to take a crap, and that's when the trade happened, was in March. That's why the trade happened. Talbot and Kakkonen were starting to show weakness, and the play in front of them was not good. You open up the month with a 5-2 win on the 2nd of February. February 2nd, 5-2 win, and then you have 5 days off as you head into the All-Star break and all that cute stuff. And then lose 2-0 to the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg, which might end up being a common thing if Barry Trotz becomes their coach. I hope not, but it might. 2-1, 2-0 losses in Winnipeg sounds really fun and exciting. Not. But a harbinger of things to come there, unfortunately. But it would get worse. We beat Carolina 3-2, which you feel like $1 million. You beat up Detroit 7-4, a mediocre Detroit team that's still very much in the early stages of a long rebuild. Feels like it's never going to end. Still feels like they're just starting over there. We'll see. They didn't get Marco Rossi a couple of years ago, and that's okay with me. Minnesota would only win 1 more game out of the next 6. Losing 5 out of 6. 6-3 loss to Winnipeg, 6-2 loss to Florida. Then Minnesota comes back, 7-3 win over Edmonton. Everything's fine. It's just a 2-game losing streak. Nope, you lose to Ottawa 4-3 in the ultimate trap game. 3-1 loss at Toronto. It's like wonderful. Once you lost that Ottawa game, you just knew this was not good. 7-3 ass whooping by the Calgary Flames, burned royally at the end of the month of Debbie. Pardon me for that silliness, but that sucked. 5-1 loss versus the Calgary Flames, again, in Xcel Energy Center in this case. And it'd be a little bit of an up and down month. Wild would beat a sappy and crappy and mediocre Philadelphia team by not tripping 2 times over our left foot. We just tripped once or twice. Maybe we didn't trip a 3rd or 4th time in the game. But somehow the Wild actually escaped to the win in a game they played like absolute dog dookie. Despite Matt Boldy getting his 9th goal of the season and having great chemistry with Kevin Fiala, that was like the only positive thing going on at this point. Keelan Addison with his 2nd assist of the year. I wish he was in the lineup more often. Ryan Hartman a positive, 2 goals in the game, 20 and 21st. Some positives, but still mediocre to crappy goaltending, terrible defense, neutral, terrible in the neutral zone turnovers, and all that crap. Just sloppy. But we beat them. We beat probably the worst team in the league. In fact, I'd say they are. Philadelphia was just awful. They fired Mike Yeo at the end of the year, and they kept Chuck Fletcher. Okay? Sure. They kept Chuck Fletcher. Wonderful. Yeah, I guess they did, huh? But this is when transactions were starting to take place. And then you lose to the Buffalo Mickey frickin' Sabres on the 4th of March, which is like, why are we getting swept by the Buffalo Sabres? Is it because there's this Minnesota connection? You got Casey Middlestat, power play goal, his 2nd goal of the year. 2nd goal of the year, I might add. Kyle Oposo, oh gee, isn't that quaint? Former Gopher who left angrily like, screw you, I hate Don Lucia, and I hate the Gophers. I'm going to the NHL. Good for you. 15th goal on the power play. And then Jeff Skinner, who'd have some interesting goals there. The Wild ended up losing 5-4 after making a furious rally. Kirill Kaprizov saw there with 26 goals on the season with about a half a minute remaining, but the Wild ended up not winning. You have to make a furious rally to even hope to get in position to win the game. You're down 5-3 with less than a minute left to the Buffalo bleeping Sabres. You lose 6-3 to Dallas. It just continues. And then, okay, we beat the Rangers 5-2. That felt like $1 million for a minute. As things started to get interesting, Cam Talbot started playing better because the rumors were swirling. The Wild were going to acquire this new goaltender named the Flower. That guy. Mr. Fleury, yep. And it was kind of exciting and all that. Earlier at the end of December, by the way, Will Bitten was traded to the St. Louis Blues organization anyway, for somebody named Nolan Stevens, okay, right before the new year and all that. That was exciting, I suppose. And there was all kinds of ups and downs, call-ups and send-downs, and call-up and send-down. Then Andrew Hammond in early Feb was traded to Montreal for Brian Baddock, who would not play for the NHL roster, unfortunately. Wild would make their first NHL player trade at this stage, moving Nico Sturm to the Colorado Avalanche and for Tyson Jost, hoping for the best there. That's still kind of, the jury's still out on that one. Wild would get Delorier, not DeLorean, but Delorier from the Anaheim Ducks for a third-round pick. That's kind of high, but, well, he was a nice player, I guess, for a minute or two in the fourth line. Definitely provided some good energy and was a cool guy. We'll see if he's worth bringing back or not. We'll see. Jack McBain traded for a second-round pick on the 20th to Arizona. So at least we got a second-round pick. That's better than not having one, I guess. We gave up a fifth-round pick. What am I talking about? That's weird. Yeah, it was a fifth-round swap, basically. So the Wild, it was a fifth-round pick swap. The Wild moved Capo Kakinen and our fifth-round pick to the San Jose Sharks. This was on the 21st of March. And to get Jacob Middleton and San Jose's fifth-round pick. So a fifth-round swap, Middleton and Kakinen moving around there. Victor Rask was traded for some Cheetos to the Seattle Kraken, future consideration. So basically Cheetos or corn nuts or something, or maybe a 12-pack of LaCroix. That's what you can hear here. It's seltzer, not hard seltzer. It is just seltzer. Okay? I'm just kidding. Then the Wild would finally trade for their guy because the whole world needed to know that the Minnesota Wild finally have Marc-Andre Fleury on the roster. Conditional second-round pick, which could have been a first-rounder if the Wild got to the conference final, and Fleury was the reason who ended up eclipsing 4 wins in the postseason, which did not happen. So it's a second-round pick to the Chicago Blackhawks at the end of the day. We'll see if he's re-signed with Minnesota or not. Basically, Mr. Bill Guerin is saying it's just kind of a wait-and-see thing. He wants him back, but he's giving him time, him being Marc-Andre Fleury. So that's the end of the transactions in the regular season. One final thing, I might as well say it now just in case I forget. The Minnesota Wild did extend Connor Dewar for about $800K a year for the next 2 years. So $1.6 million, 2 years, $800,000 on average to Connor Dewar, who will be on the fourth line, maybe the third. But it is what it is. He can play center, he can play wing. But obviously, a guy, and it is a one-way deal. He will be in the National Hockey League. So congratulations, Connor Dewar. Again, obviously, he's the kind of guy you'd want in the situation currently, and he's the kind of guy who doesn't have to be on the top power play or whatever this or that to be productive. He's the kind of guy who could play up and down the lineup. So that's always cool. Again, Jesper Wallstedt, we talked about this earlier. Jesper Wallstedt and Pavel Novak signing 3-year entry-level contracts in May. That's always exciting. Another thing I better mention before I forget, because I just might not get to it, because I didn't write it down. It just kind of popped up here as I was getting ready to do the show. And yes, it's a privacy thing, but but not so much as the actual. I mean, it was sent out, a Minnesota Wild press release, as I was about to record. This is from Pavel Novak, as of late June here. Hello, everyone. I was wondering how to release this information and share my feelings. There are things that are hard to talk about and explain, but they should be talked about. Unfortunately, my health condition does not allow me to prepare for the next season. I was diagnosed with oncological disease a few days ago and will soon begin treatment. The coming months will not be easy for me, but I firmly believe that everything will turn out well, and soon I will fly again on the ice with joy and passion. I will be stronger. Please respect my privacy. Pavel Novak 11, PN 11. God bless you, Pavel. God bless you. And yes, we will respect your privacy, and absolutely wishing him the best. Pavel Novak, a wonderful, promising prospect forward, taken in the 5th round in 2020. Pavel, hoping the best for you. And I mean that with full sincerity. I mean, really love what you do out there. And, of course, again, first things come first. There's always, sometimes you got to look out for number one, too. Number one would be yourself at times in a situation like that. So, yeah, so, again, not trying to, that's more of a nervous chuckle. So, wishing you the best, Pavel. Okay, because I wanted to make sure that got in here. Because if I left that out somehow, because I get distracted with all the other stuff I'm looking at, I would have been really sad. So I'm glad I was able to get that on there. The Wild did beat the Rangers 5-2. Again, tough to transition back where I was, but it is what it is. Again, the Wild didn't acquire Fleury until the 21st, and ironically, the Wild will be playing the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and Cam Talbot would be in net and get the shutout, as if to say, "Screw you! I don't care if you're getting Fleury or not. I'm going to be good again," even though I was very not good earlier. Again, including that 7-4 loss to St. Louis early in the season, or early in the year of 2022, which was again the classic. So that's what that was, the outdoor game in Target Field. 6-5 loss to Detroit. What the hell? 3-2 loss. No, 6-5 win over Detroit, but it was ugly. Part of me. Other ugly, mediocre game that had to go to the shootout against a not good team. 6-2 loss versus Nashville. We always lose to them. But this is when Talbot started stepping up big time. The Wild would win 5 in a row. No, the Wild would win 7 in a row. 3-2 versus Boston. 3-1 versus Chicago. 3-0 versus Vegas. 3-2 over Vancouver. A little closer. But Talbot was racking up the wins at this stage. Because he's like, nope, I know you want Fleury, but I'm going to step it up here and be dominant. And it was cool to see. Fleury was never all that great with Minnesota. He just had a couple of good games. But overall, I don't know. But the Wild would end up losing the final game of the month. At least we beat Philadelphia this time, 4-1, more convincingly. Losing to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not with Marc-Andre Fleury in net, which kind of annoyed some people there. Because why not? Marc-Andre Fleury against the Penguins? Why not? 4-1 win. Marc-Andre Fleury up with giving up only one goal against a crappy Philadelphia team. Again, it would be basically a platoon here. One game. And as we headed into April and all that, it became much more Fleury. And it was a flurry of games because of the schedule makers were getting caught up. 3-1 win over Carolina, 5-1 over Washington. That felt awesome. I believe Fleury was in net for that one, if I remember correctly. Nope, this was Talbot. Again, another dominant performance. 5-1 victory over Washington. That was cool. Nashville, another 6-2 butt whooping. Just so frustrating. Just can't beat Nashville. What the heck? So frustrating. And Fleury would give up a bunch of goals. Fleury was, he had some good games, then he had some very mediocre ones. And that was a below average one. Beat Edmonton again. The Wild just dominated Edmonton this year, which felt really good. And we actually beat Calgary at the end of the season. 3-2 victory over the Flames. That was really cool. And that was with Cam Talbot in net. And after that, it was pretty much Marc-Andre Fleury going into the postseason as we progressed in that direction. But of course, we'd have a few games remaining. Apologize, I had to see the Marc-Andre Fleury. Only one goal versus the Avalanche. That felt really cool. Hoping that would be the Wild's second round opponent, regardless of what happens. But the Wild wind up with 113 points to wrap up the season, which felt awesome. You head into the series versus St. Louis, you lose 4-0 in the first game. You feel like crap. 6-2 and 5-1 butt whoopings versus St. Louis. You felt so much better. Now you're up 2-1. You've regained your home ice advantage, which feels so nice. You feel so good now. And, are we finally going to win a freaking series with home ice? Because the Wild are still winless in home ice series historically, which I've talked about a million times. Do I need to go over it again? Probably not. I'll just go over the teams really quick. You had home ice in the Western Conference Finals way back in 2003 versus the Ducks and lost. Home ice versus the Colorado Avalanche, believe it or not, in 2007 lost. 2008, pardon me. That's when we won the division. Home ice advantage versus St. Louis, loss. Home ice advantage versus St. Louis again, loss. So frustrating. 4 series now. Minnesota Wild have had home ice, and we've lost all of them. and oftentimes in very disappointing fashion, either 6 games or less. Never even went to a 7th game, which the Wild had an undefeated history in that until last year, losing against Vegas. But an overall unimpressive series, generally speaking, despite the 2 games. Husto was clearly a guy that Minnesota knew what to do. We just knew what to do with him. We'd figured him out, kicking his butt. Jordan Binnington, the Stanley Cup champion goalie, the miracle goalie during that Cup run. And he was a decent prospect for St. Louis. He just wasn't living up to it at all until that magical season where everything changed so quickly. Wild ended up getting their asses handed to them 15-5 in the next 3 games. 5-2, 5-2, 5-1. Just almost like the 91 Stanley Cup final. You go up 2 games to 1. You feel so good. And then it was just bam, bam, bam. And it wasn't you just lost. You got your butt handed to you in all 3 games. So it just felt terrible. We didn't lose 8-0 or anything, but 5-1 and a lifeless loss in St. Louis. Hoping somehow, some way we'd get our heads out of somewhere to be able to come home for a 7th game and see what happens. You just, you're hoping for that. And there was no life. Nothing. So you go from such a magical 113-point season to such a sad, heartbreaking loss down the stretch. Felt so good, though, watching Kirill Kaprizov get to the 100-point mark, ultimately 108, to see Kevin Fiala get to 85 points. It felt so damn good. But at the end of the day, it all didn't mean a whole lot once the playoffs rolled around. The major positive is Kirill Kaprizov had 7 goals in that series, 13 points. He was awesome in that series. Absolutely great was Kirill Kaprizov. Kevin Fiala did a whole lot of, he got a couple assists in the series, like 4 or 5 assists. So not exactly 33 goals, 85 points during the regular season type of level. Zuccarello disappeared for the 2nd year in a row. Ryan Hartman disappeared completely. Joel Eriksson was very good for the 2nd year in a row. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Matt Boldy was halfway decent. So it's guys like Joel Eriksson, Matt Boldy, Kirill Kaprizov that you can count on. Looks like going into the postseason. Defensively, they all stunk. I mean, I'm just being blunt and honest. Defensively, the defensemen, generally speaking, were not good in the series. All the way from Brodin, all the way down to Kulikov and such. Not a good series for the Minnesota Wild defensemen. Brandon Dehame, looked promising earlier in the year. He kind of vanished off the face of the earth. Still wound up playing in 80 games. And would get a point once in a blue moon. Wound up with 122 penalty minutes to actually lead the Wild even more than Foligno, because he would get every penalty in the book pretty much. Versus, just kind of a dumb slash or getting in a fight or whatever the heck would happen. But I don't know. Brandon Dehame with only 17 points in 80 games. He stuck the whole season and was only scratched twice all year. Nice to see he's durable. Nice to see that he can pull that off and do a good job. But 17 points, whew, that's kind of crazy. So hopefully we'll get some more offense out of Brandon Dehame going forward. Or, he's not as clumsy with the puck with the turnovers and some of the penalties that just were not good. Quite simply, were not good. So hopefully you can count on Dehame more going into the season. There will be a Dewey line to where Dehame, guys like that working together. That's what they call the Dewey line. And, of course, the Grease line, Grease, whatever it's called, right? The wonderful 3rd line of Minnesota, which some people would call the 2nd line. But, yeah, in a lot of ways it is. Joel Eriksson, Jordan Greenway, and, of course, Marcus Foligno. And then you had Boldy with Goodrow and Fiala. Just a gorgeous one right there. Goodrow wound up with a career high of 44 total points anyway, 14 goals. Matt Boldy, an extremely promising rookie season, 47 games, because again, the late start, 15 goals, 24 assists for 39 points, and he finished 8th for the Calder Cup. Wonderful. Jonas Brodin got to 30 points, finally. Good for him. Alex Gallegossi got to 30 points, which he's done before, but he was off to a strong start, and as the season progressed, it kind of scared us. So adding him to that contract didn't make us all feel all that great at the end of the day. Let's get to the awards and demerits now, if humanly possible. Wow, 48 minutes in. I hope you guys don't mind. I apologize. Just a lot to say and a lot to catch up with. All right, so who was your biggest disappointment for the 21-22 Minnesota Wild? Feel free to comment why you made your selection. And, of course, the Twitter account is @BraveTheWild. The choices were Matt Dumba, Alex Goligoski, Dmitry Sokolov. Notice they're all defensemen because I wasn't real happy with defensemen this year, but I also left open for other comment. With a good number of votes, Matt Dumba won pretty strongly here. 44.7, and I agree. That'd be my vote as well. 44.7, because, you're hoping and praying that you're going to see more offense, more production out of him with such a great shot and all that stuff, but it got so predictable, and guys are willing to take the punishment for the team and such to block his shot, his dumb bomb as they call it, despite the fact he doesn't like the name of it apparently. Dumba with 44.7, Dmitry Kulikov, finishes with 20.4, Alex Goligoski 18.4, so there were definitely votes for everybody, and other 16.5, so let's get to what people had to say here. Scott Forner said, tough one. Virtually every player met or exceeded my expectations. If there was... Really? Not Dumba? But yeah, he does add somebody here, which I think is a pretty good guy to add. It's been added multiple times here. I'll get back to where I was going here. If there was a disappointment, then I'd probably have to agree with Woodsauce 24's assessment of Daheim. Okay, I'm doing this backwards. I apologize. But honestly, I had no idea what to expect from him when the season started. Yeah, I mean, he was a fourth-round pick, and he was not that big of a prolific scorer for the Providence Friars. But at the same time, I mean, you're hoping and praying for something. And he was like his offense is okay with the Iowa Wild. Maybe you're hoping for a little more, and less of the dumb turnovers and such. State of Hoppy, again, Scott, out of Edina says, whoever didn't let Addison play. And yeah, I retweeted that because that's a good one. I think that one got a reply of some sorts. And then Logan Jensen said he's getting traded. State of Hoppy responded with, can coaches be traded? Logan responded one more time with, our special teams coach should be traded. Coach should be traded. Andrew Woodard says there aren't many disappointing players this season, so that's good. I'd say Daheim if I had to pick. He started the season very solid, but just sort of disappeared into a very replaceable fourth liner. I agree. I believe that one has a reply as well. Yep, Jordan Avatrice Truther, interesting, says Jordan Greenway and Daheim. I would say Daheim because as the season went on, he took more and more stupid penalties. There you go. Yep, agreed. His game was replaceable the more I've watched. Greenway also. Some games he's amazing and his style is so fun to watch. Other games he was invisible. Yeah, I feel you. Sorry, I'm getting almost going to sneeze here. Sorry. Ended up being a cough instead, whatever that means. Thank you, Jordan, for that. Cooley in the playoffs says Mini at Mini Co. Interesting one there. Cool looking logo, actually. Matthew at MN Wild Talk says Greenway. I always find myself thinking he can do more because there are games where he shows he can be dominant. But in most, he's just along for the ride with the grief line. Grief instead of grease, right? So that's why you wrote it like that. What's wrong with me? I'm fine. Yeah, I don't want to embarrass myself because I feel like a complete idiot now. Yeah, I'm not going to say it. I finally got it. Yeah, I think you know what I'm saying. Yes, grief. Now I see why you're spelling it that way. Anyhow, I feel like the dumbest person alive. I apologize to anybody. Yeah. Maybe I don't pay attention enough to certain things, I guess, and that's on me. Zook's Sugar Baby, okay, says the fact that they're cap-strapped and re-signed Goligoski will literally never make sense. I don't care about his plus minus. I agree. And I agree with you also, Matthew. And I'm not doing that to just be agreeable. I think all of you made some awesome points there. That was pretty good. That was really good. Okay, who is your biggest surprise for 2021, 2022? Feel free to comment on what made your selection. This one didn't get as many votes, but it was a dominant landslide for Ryan Hartman, and I agree with that too. I agree with both of you. Freddie Goudreau got 25%. Matt Boldy got 16.7%, and there was no comment either. Interesting. So this one just didn't get a whole lot of spotlight, I guess, but it still got enough votes to garner some nice percentage differences here. Ryan Hartman wins in a landslide for the biggest surprise, and I agree with that. Matt Dumba is my biggest disappointment. Ryan Hartman is my biggest surprise. And the last one, which is a landslide of landslides, which I hope is a similar thing coming up, but we'll leave that alone. Brave the Wild says, who is your MVP for the 2021-2022? This one will probably favor somebody a lot more than others. Feel free to comment why you made your selection. Yeah, because it's an easy choice. Kirill Kaprizov with a number of votes here, too, involved. This one got a little more spotlight than the other one. 91.7%. Kevin Fiala, 3.3. Matt Zuccarello, 3.3. Other, please comment. 1.7%. Okay, let's see what happens. Yeah, Brandon Quast, again, also of MNW Prospects, which is also known as Young Guns now. Awesome guy. Awesome guy out of Wisconsin. Great guy. Says, Kirill Kaprizov by a mile. He put the team on his back when it mattered most. Honorable mention would have to be Hartman. Interesting. Honorable mention for Hartman, huh? He did have a good season, and he was an MVP in the regular season. But the overall MVP is definitely Kirill Kaprizov, and he was the playoff MVP as well. So very, very, very cool. I retweeted something, and I'll read it here, and I'll probably read it then as well. June 6th, from Derek Felska, says, 78 years ago, over 1 million people participated in a military operation with the hope of defeating evil. Evil is still around, but the bravery and courage these men and women displayed should never be forgotten or overlooked. We owe them all a huge debt of gratitude. Hashtag D-Day. Derek, I salute you. And I give you a big hand as well. Very well said. I mean, that was awesome. That's one of those I wouldn't mind hearing Derek Felska saying on the microphone. Like something like that. Like that exact line. I can hear him saying it right now, and how cool that would sound. That was awesome, Derek. You know, that was really good. So that pretty much concludes the wrap-up. As crazy and long-winded as it may have been, and I apologize, it might be a little too long, but that's what you call putting a bow on a season. You know, all the ebbs and flows and ups and downs, the positives, the not-so-positives, the weird COVID stoppage, and the trade for Fleury, and Cam Talbot stepping up after getting really crappy for a little while, and, you know, the nice addition of Middleton, but will we be able to re-sign him, and losing Capo Kakinen, who I thought could have been a possible platoon goalie with Jesper Wallstedt in the future. So all the weird ups and downs during the course of the season end up leading to where we are now at the end of the day. Wonderful 113 points, all-time record. 47 goals by Kirill Kaprizov, all-time record. 108 points, all-time record. Kevin Fiala, second all-time record for points in a regular season. Zuccarello, unbelievable season as well. You know, so, and it's just crazy. Just sucks how it ended. It really does. Again, you go into the offseason, and we'll talk about this much more in the next segment, but, you know, with the whole cap situation and where we're headed and what kind of players we're talking about. So I'll just shut up about this now, because this is where we talk about the future and look at the cap situation some more, and who we're going to sign, who we're not going to sign, and this and that. And, well, let's talk about Bill Guerin some more coming up in segment number 2. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 2. We're going to look at the draft, free agency. We're going to talk a little bit about Stanley Cup Final, all of that good stuff. Of course, we're going to talk about the Kevin Fiala trade, which had not happened yet as of the end of segment number 1. And maybe my voice sounds a little bit different for, you know, personal reasons, unfortunately, but I'm okay for the most part. But a surprise has happened. Derek Felska, as I called him, the legend. The last time we came on, it was trade deadline special. Now we could call it the draft and free agency special and State of the Wild 2022. Welcome aboard, Crease and Assists finest. The Sports Daily at the moment. We'll see about the new page if you want to talk about that. Derek Felska, welcome on board.
Hey, thanks so much. I have to admit, the legend thing. I know I said you put a lot of pressure on me after that, but I'm liking it.
Yeah, yep. You get to be
I'll
like
take
John
it.
Cooper. Yeah.
I'll take it. I mean, there's worse things you could have called me.
I can call you in a positive way, the John Cooper of Minnesota Wild blogs. That's for sure. It'd be a. Oh.
I should have been a lawyer, but I went into
Ooh,
education instead. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like he did. What an unusual path.
Isn't that
What a
crazy?
cool path. Yeah.
A really cool path. And I suppose, yeah, he does look like a lawyer, doesn't he?
Well, he is a lawyer. He has a law
Yeah.
degree.
That's cool. Yeah. And it's like, like what I mean, like he looks the part. Like he actually looks like a lawyer. Like me, I don't think I look like a lawyer, even if I got one, a degree and all that. I look like a show host and some dummy behind a microscope looking at stents, I guess. I don't know. But at the end of the day, though.
It's important work, man. Saves
Oh,
lives.
yes.
I know people that have been saved by the things that you've helped create. I tell people about that all the time.
Oh, thank you very much. And yeah, it is. There's definitely a good side to all that. Definitely. So, speaking of John Cooper, I thought I'd bring this up. Since we have fun little questions sometimes about video games and random things on, in the fan interaction segment, which of course is coming up a bit later, segment number 3. John Cooper to me, I don't know what it is, but see, for the longest time I thought he looked like Mike Modano a little bit. Now I think he looks like Batman a little bit. Like he could be Bruce Wayne. Am I crazy?
Yeah, I don't think you're crazy, but I mean, I could see a little bit of Bruce, but it depends. I mean, it really it's more of a Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
Batman,
that's what it
probably.
is.
That's probably where he resembles the most. He's definitely not a Val Kilmer or Christian Bale, but definitely I would say a Michael Keaton, early '90s Batman.
Yeah, that's what he looks like. He looks like Michael Keaton. So he looks like the original in my opinion, other than the actual show. It's a really, really good old show. But with that said, of course, the Minnesota Wild acquired a defenseman in the Kevin Fiala trade. We'll get to that shortly. But wouldn't it be nice if somehow, some way, that particular defenseman turned out like Cale Makar somehow? Obviously, the odds of that, yeah.
I would say they're not the same kind of player. That's pretty easy to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you want to get into Brock Faber, he's a good player. I mean, I've watched him a lot with the Gophers the last 2 seasons. One of the things that that's really kind of since I guess we are now talking about the Fiala trade, that's really kind of the key thing that a lot of people have fixated on. Apart from the fact that they felt that maybe we could have held out and maybe gotten a better offer somehow. But Faber himself is a right shot defenseman. Really strong defensively, good athlete, and I say that in all seriousness. I mean, I realize all professional hockey players are probably decent athletes, but you can tell there's a level of athleticism that even sets him apart from most other players themselves. He's a good skater. He's physical. He does not shy away from battles in the corners for pucks. He's not afraid to use his body to separate people from pucks. The one thing that I guess that kind of surprised me when, after the trade was consummated, was when I started to look. Not that I didn't already know, or at least not that I didn't know anything about Brock Faber. I definitely had, like I said, I've been watching him, in his time with the Gophers so far. But one of the things that kind of surprised me was that I was surprised that he's only 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Because seeing him play on the Gophers, he looked like he was a bigger player. Like I would have guessed 6'2", something like that. But he is only 6 feet tall, so he plays bigger than one would expect a person that's 6 feet's about an average to maybe slightly below average size defenseman at the NHL level.
Yeah.
But he's definitely not a little guy, and he doesn't play like a little guy. And he performed not just well for the Gophers the last 2 seasons, where I really felt he was really the defensive mainstay of that team. But he was also really good at the Olympics too, where he played a lot of Warrior minutes at the Olympics this year in China. And again, a person that did the tough things you have to do to win games, was not afraid to block shots, was always throwing his body around to keep the area around the crease clear. So, I mean, he does a lot of things that maybe some of the other guys in our defensive pool of prospects do not do. So, and he's also a right shot, which again, that's something that we don't have in large quantity in our group of our prospects.
Pardon me, bad timing for that cough there, but no, okay. I mean, yeah, it's like it's ironic how we keep popping up with the left shot defense, and then we have some right shot ones, but they're always like miscast for some reason, like Louis Belpedio, who just is he only going to fit on a second power play unit? Could he be on the third pairing? Is he even good enough to be there? And then and then now you have Kalen Addison. Is he too damn small? This and that. And obviously we got beat up and forever until we were able to bring in Middleton. So it's like this guy seems to kind of fit both in a sense. Maybe not the offense, but actually can fit into a top four and can also be physical. And to also take a beating when need be, I guess.
I think, like with the Gophers, he doesn't have to be the offensive defenseman with the Gophers. Yeah. So, that's something like, because there's Jackson Lacombe for that, or Jackson Lacombe, Ryan Johnson. Those are more and Mike Kester. Those are your three really offensive defensemen, the ones that are gonna walk the tightrope near the blue line to open up shots and opportunities that way. He doesn't have to be that with the Gophers. He can be the person that's the stable stay-at-home presence, and he's done reasonably well. But that's, of course, where some people are being critical, because they look at him and they see a player that, is about a half a point per game player at the college level, and they're like, oh, wow, this isn't enough for what we got for Kevin Fiala. And, I've heard this. I was listening to Beyond the Pod with K-Fan with Brandon Molesky and Pat Micheletti, and sometimes people get really fixated on the statistics, and the to me the irony of it all is it kind of depends really on how much you like the player, whether they want to admit it or not. If you like the player, you don't care about the statistics. If you don't like the player, you fixate on the statistics and say, see, he's not enough. He's not good enough. So like the same people that are going to tell us that Brock Faber was apparently, we aimed a little too low, are the same people that are also going to tell you, well, Jared Spurgeon's great, and it's because of some whatever analytic they're going to latch on to. So everyone's cherry picking, but it's all a matter of whether they like that person or not. Now, I understand some of the, I guess the frustration about him. I think the other message that's kind of being discussed right now, especially with adding another defensive to the pool, is that pool is pretty deep right now. I mean, there's a lot of players in line. You got, you already mentioned Kalen Addison, who I think one would think would have been at the top of that prospect depth chart. And then you have Carson Lambos, who's a first-round pick. You probably think that probably gives him the next spot, if there is that one. Ryan O'Rourke, who played a full season in the pros already during the COVID year. Then you have Damon Hunt. You have Marshall Warren with Boston College, who had a not bad year. Now you throw Jack Peart, of course. A Mr. Hockey Award winner, played as a freshman on a really good St. Cloud State team. And now you throw Brock Faber into that mix, and there's enough prospects there to have a whole defense unto itself of just prospects.
Yeah,
And
you
as
could.
we all
Yeah.
know, there's the spots up above are all occupied. And 5 out of those 6 spots that are available up in the big club are 3 of them are guys with no movement clauses, and 2 of them are with a modified no trade clause.
Mm.
So where's the opportunity going to be?
It's tough.
Well, I mean, at some point those got to get open, but right now, I mean, the leverage is with those players. Like, Jared Spurgeon's contract goes until he's 38. I think Jared Spurgeon's 31.
Yeah, 31, 32, yeah.
Yeah, Brodeen, that contract goes for at least the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, till 28, yeah.
Goligoski the next 2 years, and those are all no movement clauses. In other words, they totally have the control to say, I know you would like to open up a spot, but you know what? No. You can't even move me to the minors. The only thing you could do is put them in the press box. That's it. And then you're paying a player, but the roster spot really isn't completely free. So that makes it challenging. And then you have 2 other guys with no modified no trades. You got Dumba, who's entering in the last year of his contract, and Kulikov, who's also in the last year of his contract. Now, do you want these kids to have some opportunities? And not only that, then as you just mentioned before too, it sounds like they want to re-sign Middleton. So that's 6 spots. That's 6 spots by my math.
Yep.
So where's it gonna give?
Best case, yeah. I mean, Kulikov is absolutely he's probably the first to go, and I think Dumba for multiple reasons. Even though they supposedly love him to death and all that, and I honestly think the whole back and forth with Barrero and Guerin, which of course there was nothing personal there, obviously they're friends and everything, was I think it's partially trying to make sure that teams don't think they're just giving Dumbo away for a 7th round pick. I mean, obviously, so that's part of it. But obviously cap space, roster spot, this and that. I mean, Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but he's also one of the few people that you can move. I mean,
yes, yep.
Whether and kudos to Barrero for not deciding, you know what, I don't want to get into a fight today.
Yeah.
He asked the tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, thank you also to Bill Guerin too for answering honestly.
Yeah.
And telling us how he felt about it. However, in the heat of the moment, he probably said some things he wished he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I think the comment saying about Kevin having 3 good months kind of told us more than it told us everything we needed to know.
Yep, it let the cat out of the bag. Yep.
If you didn't know that he was gone, that pretty much told you that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the only question I have a little bit with it is, given the fact that so many spots are allocated, and I guess for lack of, almost set in stone, because the no movement clause and modified no trade pretty much does cement people to the roster. If you're Brock Faber, who is not obviously signed because you're a college player, an amateur, to keep your amateur status. You look at the Wild and you see there's virtually no roster spots available.
Mm-hmm.
Do you sign or do you go you exercise that college leverage, which is, nope, I'm not going to sign. And then, someone has to trade you to cut their losses, just their rights.
Yep.
And then basically you go as a free agent someplace else, which is always a risk with a college player. But I mean, one would think it gives him the power to decide, do I really want to stay here or not? And, just like any person, whether you're a college athlete or in a pro or whatever, you're looking at the roster because you're trying to see where your opportunity is going to be. And, does this mean to all the other defensemen on that list? guess what? This is Brock's spot, and you're having to wait for whatever comes next.
Oh boy.
You know.
Yeah.
That's tough for that group to look at. I mean, if I'm a defenseman, as much as you're happy that you've been drafted or been developed and all that stuff, you're also kind of looking around going, "Where's my chair?
Mm-hmm.
Where's my seat on the bench or on this bench with the Minnesota Wild?"
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We'll kind of see how that unfolds. I mean, I don't think it'll unfold this season. I think over the next probably 2 years, we'll, once, some people probably fall off the roster, whether it's Dumba or whether it's Kulikov or Goligoski, then some spots open up. But they're gonna be given time to season, is my guess.
Yeah,
there isn't gonna be a big rush to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna have to be the whole AHL develop and all that, because it's good to let guys develop in the AHL. It's just the only fear is if there's no spot, like we've been saying. It's a tough go. The Goligoski signing is the biggest mystery to me for forever. That one I can't for the life of me understand, other than they had some kind of sweetheart deal. But my thought was the sweetheart part of it for Goligoski was the $5 million, not the quote.
No, I 100% agree with you. I feel like we already did him the favor.
$5 million.
Giving him an extension, and then giving him to me the no movement is the part that I'm just not okay with.
Yeah, I'm baffled.
Okay, we'll sign you for $2 million, but we're not giving you a no movement clause.
Mm-hmm. He should go back to Dallas with Pete DeBoer, who we're talking about in fan interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even believe some of these. That's the worst part. We give out no move clauses like they're like gift cards at work or something, like $25 Target gift cards. There you go.
It's a gift bag.
Yeah.
Don't worry, there's a no move clause in there. Are you one of the lucky ones? Open your bag and find out. Oh, yes. I only got a no trade. Damn. Damn
it! I can. There's only 2 teams, so I don't want to go to Buffalo and I don't want to go to Montreal. So I guess those 2. I don't want to go to those 2.
No to Arizona unless you're Jack McBain.
Mm-hmm. I would love to live in Arizona, but unfortunately, the way things are set up, it's not a pretty sight right now. I get to play in how many seats does it have? Like 8,000 or something? 5,000?
5,000.
Oh, and people complained about the Civic Center when the Wild were going to start back in '97, whatever.
I mean, but that also tells you that whole thing is a farce, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Because I mean, for years, and I would also say to a lesser extent, the same thing is true with Winnipeg. Winnipeg's arena, I don't remember what it's called now. It used to be called the MTS Center.
Mm-hmm,
but
it's small, right?
That's an arena that's only like 15,300, which is about the same as the Met Center was.
Wow.
And back in the late or the early 90s, they said, "Oh, this isn't viable. It's not big enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough revenue capacity here." Well, that's the story you were going with, but obviously it doesn't really matter that much, because one would think that even if one would think that if they had to be in a 5,000 seat arena, the league would be like, no, because I mean the league controls your franchise, right? I mean, you as an owner basically are leasing that ability to have the franchise. The league can pull that away from you. That's always their ace that they have up their sleeve. If they feel you're not doing something correctly, they can pull that from you. I mean, you might be the owner, but they still hold the rights to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they believe that's quote unquote a breach of contract, they probably can fight it out and pull it. But for whatever reason, Arizona, they're just sticking to it like grim death, and I don't get it. There's many other teams that have been relocated for less.
Mm-hmm.
With the North Stars being one of them, right?
Yeah. Oh, that was.
Atlanta moving back to Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm. And the Calgary way back. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Atlanta Flames.
Yep.
Oh. Colorado Rockies to New Jersey. All that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Rockies. I love that logo.
Quebec to Colorado.
Yep.
Hartford to Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, those are some
So,
wonderful memories. Yeah, I love those teams. Hartford Whalers.
Mm-hmm.
Quebec Nordiques.
Uh,
Yeah, I love those teams. I'd take them back in a heartbeat.
well, and now with Quebec, feeling like no one wants them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the arena. It's a new arena. It's not like they'd have to go back and play in the Colisée Pepsi from like the 1950s, because I've been in that building. I went to that building. Yeah, I got to go to that building in 2003. My wife and I went in a spring break, and we went to a Quebec Remparts game. And they played in the Colisée Pepsi, and up in the rafters were the old Nordiques banners and some other banners from the Remparts, and also an AHL team called the Quebec Rafales that used to be briefly in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an old-timey arena, but kind of cool to be there.
That'd be amazing.
But now they have, like, what is it, like the Videotron Center or something? It's like an 18,300 seat brand spanking new arena.
Oh, man.
With the hope of landing an NHL team, and the NHL seems to have absolutely no interest in going there.
That doesn't make sense.
No, and it seems like a slap to the face when you're allowing another team to play in a 5,000 seat arena in Arizona.
Yeah, I
In a
don't know why
market
they're so worried about it.
Yeah, in a market where no one cares.
Mm-hmm. It's Arizona.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's cool that it's a cool sidetrack. It's related. It's like, it's like going from Intellivision to ColecoVision, basically, which is totally fine. Yep, which is fine. Yep.
It's like a Sega Genesis to 32X.
Yep. Oh, no, right? The angry video game nerd, no. Yep. Those are funny. Yeah, 32X. Where was I? But, and of course I sidetracked you with the whole Stanley Cup final thing, bringing up Cale Makar. So we might as well, that was my own fault, the way I kind of set that up. So I apologize. I figured we might as well recognize what Colorado was able to accomplish, and I did something right at the beginning of the year and not right at the beginning of the postseason. At the beginning of the postseason, I picked the Calgary Flames to win the Stanley Cup. At the beginning of the season, I actually did pick Colorado and Darcy Kemper to hold the Stanley Cup at the beginning of the year. Even I actually picked it, and of course I pushed that aside. As we went into the postseason, acting like, oh no, I never did that. So I got lucky with that one, and terrible luck with the Flames as usual.
Well, maybe I should ask you for some betting advice then, if you have those kind of Nostradamus powers. Let's face it, Colorado was a preseason favorite for a lot of people, and there's good reason for it. Yep. They're a team, without a doubt, you could see it was coming into its own.
You could see it.
With its top flight talent up front, on the back end, and the question really was, as you kind of alluded to, is Darcy Kemper good enough, and will he stay healthy enough to be able to help that team get through the Stanley Cup playoffs and win a Stanley Cup? And the answer is, for the most part, yes.
They did it.
The thing that I think is, and good on the broadcast to acknowledge it wasn't just Darcy Kemper. Pavel Francouz bailed them out.
Yeah.
When Kemper went down, that could have spelled and would have spelled disaster in most other years. But he was able to provide, decent minutes, decent performance for them to really not lose track of things or let series become dicier than they were. I mean, that's really what makes the Colorado run in part so special, is because they never trailed, I don't really believe, in any of their series. I think they were in the lead or even in all of their series, they never really felt like they were the ones that were behind. And that just kind of shows their level of dominance that they had on their way to a Stanley Cup. And, Kemper played well enough. I mean, I don't think he was as good as Andrei Vasilevsky, but in all honesty, he didn't have to be. That's the advantage of having everything else that Colorado has. Both the McKinnon and Nichushkin, let's face it, he was the other big person that emerged out of this postseason for Colorado. He was a force. He was an absolute force out there, and now he's going to go off and get paid, which for the Wild, that's a good thing, because hopefully he's leaving the team and hopefully he leaves the division. But
yes,
man, he definitely, you talk about a player that raised their game. He was arguably maybe the second most important forward on the Avalanche, at least in terms of how things worked out in the playoffs. Nazem Kadri's probably also in that mix too. But Nichushkin was more surprising because he just wasn't he wasn't one of the big time scorers going into the playoffs. He was that playoff hero, I guess you call him. That seems to happen every year. There's a guy that kind of emerges out of nowhere to become, to score clutch goals, like Brian Bickle. I keep thinking about him all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Or a long time back with Edmonton, even though they didn't win the cup, Fernando Pisani. Remember him?
I believe so. Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah.
Like a nobody, but for whatever reason, he was clutch in the playoffs, and got them, scored at the right times to get them to advance, and you need people like that. You need people to find a different level or to deliver in the clutch, and Colorado, I know Wild fans aren't, the fan bases have not liked each other from the beginning. They're the only team that the Wild have been in division with from start to finish. No other team can say that. They were in the Northwest Division with us. We both migrated over to the Central. And so the hatred is real. The hatred is long. We have history with them, playoff history, everything else. But at the end of the day, you have to admit they were the best team and they deserve to win.
They were. This was just their year, like you said. Like we were both kind of thinking you could just see it coming eventually. Was there? It's like, was there going to be that impending collapse again? Like defensively, goaltending wouldn't work out, this or that. But this time, it just never came. And then of course the offense was even better than ever. And then you add. And then it was insane. And then you add a guy who some people might compare, dare they call it crazy, or even like a modern day version, early 70s.
You still there?
A certain defenseman. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Robert Gordon Orr.
Yes. That's where the comparisons are kind of going. At least like a modern day version of Robert Orr. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was such a difference maker in many of the games. His ability to manufacture opportunities with his skating is really what makes him unique, where he has the ability to just pick up the puck, turn the jets on, and he can fly by the opposing defense almost as well as McKinnon can. And that's scary when you consider he's a guy that's normally on the blue line. So he was just capable of things that just you haven't seen really in a long time. And he was well deserving of the Conn Smythe. And the freaky thing is that all this kid has done is win. From getting the Hobey Baker, the Calder Trophy as the top rookie, and now the Conn Smythe at age 23. I mean, he's just on the early part of his rise into as a superstar. And the scary thing is he might even become even better.
Yeah, isn't that terrifying?
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, and then obviously I'm jealous like beyond belief that he's not that he wasn't on the Wild obviously somehow some way, but because I mean you remember seeing him in college and how phenomenal he was, and then it's like he's going to Colorado. It's like oh no,
Yeah.
oh no, please no, and then you just like right away I saw this whole scenario take place when I realized because it's like like drafts happen. Teams like dip a little bit, like talented teams have injuries and they dip like Colorado did. Tim Duncan with the Spurs, all that kind of nonsense, and they look what happened there too.
Yeah.
So I saw the whole scenario kind of coming together when I realized he's going to Colorado, isn't he? Like, oh no, because I forgot which team he was going to, and I just kind of did the 5-second little click on Hockey Database there or whatever, or they were talking about it in the broadcast, and it's like, oh no. So you could just see it coming.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and it was instant too. He was plug and play once he got to the NHL. Like right away, he was already right.
It really was. Yeah.
He was already like.
He went from the NC2A title game
Yeah.
to just getting thrown into the playoffs, and he looked like he belonged there.
Like all NHL level. Like if there was such a category.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
He's a special talent, and the thing is, credit to. I mean, I realize Colorado's opportunity came at the fact that they had, higher draft selections. I mean, you don't get McKinnon unless you're drafting near the very top of the draft, right? And Makar was a 4th overall pick. But they also, they've found savvy selections in other places as well. And the one thing that you can definitely tell Colorado emphasizes organizationally is they either draft or they acquire great skaters. There is not a slow player on that entire team. Like, they can all really skate very, very well. They're all 4 of their forward lines are fast. I mean, very fast. And that was really evident against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay looked tired. Tampa Bay looked slower, at least a step or two slower than Colorado did on a consistent basis. And then, when you toss in the fact that Colorado's defense, between Makar and Bowen Byram, who also to me looked like he had raised his game considerably over the course of this postseason. I mean, those two are very young. They're not even 25, and they have 2 really strong skating defensemen who have a ton of skill. And the unfortunate thing for the Wild and probably the West Conference is that they look like they could be good for a while.
Yep, and they probably will be. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, I would think so.
Yep. I mean, they're gonna have to make some choices this summer, but it's not like the choices the Wild have to make.
No, nothing like moving around the cap or anything, or God knows what else. So, yep, that's a good segue. We could, and of course, we'll just give the details real quick since we talked mostly about the Kevin Fiala trade already. I'll make sure this thing doesn't pop up and make noise on us. But of course, the full trade, of course, is Kevin Fiala to the Los Angeles Kings. I like to say Los Angeles a different way.
Yep.
Of course, for Brock Faber of the Gophers. Obviously, captain of the Gophers now, with a certain guy also going to Colorado.
Yep.
Certain captain of the Gophers. And a first-round pick, which would be number 19, slightly higher than our number 24. So, multiple first-round picks once again, which is nice. Unfortunately, they're in the latter half.
Yep.
Kevin Fiala to a pretty, it's a team that made the playoffs. I mean, and they still have some remnants of the great years. Obviously, Kopitar's still there. Dustin Brown, I don't know how we think about that guy very much, but
yeah,
Kopitar's still pretty damn good. They have some nice prospects.
Actually, a lot of nice prospects.
They have a lot of nice prospects, yeah.
That's probably the other thing where I think in the Fiala trade, kind of, I guess now
Would be
having a little more
interesting,
time
yeah.
to digest it a little bit, where you have to
Yeah.
where you might start to hear some more questions is, Brock Faber's a good defenseman. I'm not gonna sit there and crap on him like maybe some other people have, but the one place where the Los Angeles Kings are deep prospect-wise is up at forwards, particularly center. And the question is why didn't they add a forward?
Yeah.
Because, that
Yep.
is, I mean, we already mentioned the logjam we have at defense already, which this doesn't make that any easier. But if there's an opportunity to be had, I still think, forwards with top six potential is one of those places. And the Kings have a bunch of guys, that are skilled centers, and, you can only have two skilled centers in your top six. There's two center spots. So, the question is why didn't we choose to ask for a center, especially since we were giving them a forward as it was, And that's a team that's loaded at it. They have Quentin Byfield, Jarrett Anderson, Dolan, Adrian Kempe had a great year, an outstanding year, probably a year that I think he had over 30 goals. Probably a player that most people haven't heard too much about because, let's face it, Los Angeles plays most of their games at 9:30 at night Central Time, so you don't hear as much about the Kings as maybe you would if he played in Toronto or New York or something like that. But they have a good young talent, and now you're adding Fiala to that mix. I think Fiala will love to have a chance to play if he gets a chance to play in a line with Kopitar.
That could be really nice.
I mean, with all due respect who he's had to work with, it's always been second fiddle.
Yep. Third line. Yep.
Yep. I mean, for a time he was literally
Excuse me.
he was trying to do it all by himself because he didn't have any help. Last year was a little better because he finally had a setup man with Matt Boldy. But now, imagine what it would be like when he has a center that's that setup man. I think that'll make it even easier for him. But again, he's got to be motivated too. So we'll see what happens now that he's gotten his money. But it's a shame it didn't work out here, and I guess we'll see how that plays out.
Yep, we shall see. They might end up being the conference finalists with Colorado the next couple of years. We'll see. Could end up happening, but it's going to be fun to monitor for the most part. Otherwise, again, with those multiple picks, it's like you want to believe they're going to take forwards, centers, something like that. But of course, they always come back with the best player available.
Yeah,
I completely I completely understand the approach because obviously you don't want to leave the third best defenseman in the draft there when you have and then take the 11th best forward. There's always that kind of scenario that could happen. But boy, I think we need. I mean, obviously, eventually, the center position, the forward position, there have to be more and more of those. Luckily, we have a number of them building up in the grapevine. Of course, we not as many as defensemen where we might not even have a spot for them to go to. That's a huge issue.
Can I have one last thing in the Fiala deal?
Yeah.
So I ran
I
ran a poll on Twitter where I asked the question about how did they think the Fiala deal went, and I have 105 votes, so it's not like two people talked to me. 12.4% said we got fleeced. In other words, we made the deal too soon. We didn't create a bidding war. 41% though said fair deal. 15%,
that's right.
15%, just a little over 15% said that they felt it was better than they expected, and then 31.4% said it's too early to tell. So the largest contingent says that they felt we got a fair deal. So it's divided. And no doubt there's going to be people on both sides, but the other thing I guess that the intangible with the deal is the question whether we could have tried to stir up more of a bidding war and maybe driven up the price a little bit more. And like I saw on Twitter, I won't name who these people were, but one person said, well, Bill Guerin said something to the effect earlier on a different transaction about making fair deals. I think it was in relation to the Tyson Jost, Nico Sturm thing. Which, by the way, Nico Sturm won a Stanley Cup, so it worked out well for him. But the other thing I was going to say that, about being fair, and another person tweeted, chirp back, well, I'll go out on a limb and say I'd rather have GMs that win deals. And, to me, that's kind of a fair point. If you're saying it's about effing winning, well,
yeah.
I realize you might feel like it, you might not burn bridges by, cheating somebody, but at the same time, being fair, maybe you miss out a little bit because you're not trying to win deals. So to me, I think there's some fair criticism with that. But anyways, we can move on and talk about the young guys now. Do you want?
Yep, and I can feel that too. But yeah, I can agree with that kind of bit. So dare we jump into the draft itself?
Well, how about we mention Pavel Novak?
Oh yeah, yep, that was that's good. I was kind of leading that way, and then I was like, yeah, Pavel Novak. Unfortunately, it looks like he's come up with I forget what they called it. I had it in front of me.
It's got to be some kind of cancer, at least as far as we know detail-wise. Because it just said that he was not going to train on the advice of his oncologist. Well, that's an oncologist, for anybody that doesn't know, is a person that is basically a cancer doctor.
It's
got to be something related to that, like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or something.
It is on collegial disease. I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry for jumping in.
No, it's fine. But I mean, the thing is that your health has to take priority. There's no questioning that, and it's unfortunate for him on two different levels, because I think out of all the Wild's young forwards, with maybe the possible exception of Marco Rossi, I think he probably had the most promising year, at least in terms statistically speaking. I thought he had a great year with the Kelowna Rockets, and he had like 72 points, and he was a go-to player for them. I mean, he was one of their best players most nights, and if Kelowna won games, he was usually on the score sheet more than once, and so if there was a player that I was, I guess you want to say, bullish on going, making that step from the major junior level to the American Hockey League level, he would definitely have been my favorite. But now that's obviously going to be put on hold, but for obviously very important and understandable reasons.
Yeah, it sounds like at least like a year, right? About that. Yeah.
Yeah, one would expect.
God knows, yeah. Yeah, so it's a huge shame. It's the second time in 3 years now we've seen this happen to a player, like a very important player in our system, and in the same draft, obviously Marco Rossi with the myocarditis. Kuznetsov had a significant shoulder injury like a year ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And the thing,
Damon Hunt. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that. I mean, that's always the. I'm not saying it's the risk that you take or whatever, because his cancer probably had nothing to do with his playing, unlike the injury that Kuznetsov sustained in a game. I mean, he was checked and that caused the injury.
That's different.
But at the same time, that's the unfortunate thing that can derail plans, for everybody, not just the player, but the team too. Maybe when you had an idea, like, okay, if you're charting out your future of your team and you're going, okay, in 2025 we should have these players available to put into our lineup. Now that probably puts a question mark next to that, and unless recovery and all that kind of stuff goes well, they probably can't stick to the timeline you had maybe envisioned. But again, there's a lot of development that's going to happen, and the question is can, once this, if he, obviously hoping for a complete recovery from his medical challenges, hopefully then he can make up for the time that he's gonna miss. But obviously his health has to come first, and hopefully it doesn't. Obviously, the most important thing is his health, but hopefully also that it doesn't submarine his career either. Or then he can't come back to hockey or something like that, which would be tragic.
Yeah. Yep, because definitely looks like an absolute gem of a 5th round pick. From what we're seeing, and luckily we've been familiar with that at least once around here, where they were talking about on, who was saying this? I think it was Russo. Yeah, was talking about how, with a lot of teams, how they'll, like Colorado, how obviously they had a lot of talent. They have talented players, but then obviously to get the talented players, sometimes they had to have like a bad season for whatever reason, injuries or just like lack of players on the roster basically.
Yep.
And you get the high end pick, and then the Wild, thankfully, somehow without the fact that we've been stuck without super high picks for the entire franchise, other than the first pick we ever had with Gaborik. That we luckily were able to pull one in with a 5th round pick at least one time. So we got somebody finally.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of cool how that turned out. I thought that was like, at least we finally did get one franchise level player, other than in the super high part of the draft.
Well, it's important. So you need players to emerge.
Yeah.
And all the teams that Tampa Bay is probably an even better example of that in terms of guys that were selected beyond the 1st round that ended up being, studs for that team. I mean, Tampa Bay not having Braden Point, that was a factor. That was a big factor.
And
the guy
taking we're part of the problem.
Well, and he was taking one pick ahead of Louis Belpedio.
Yep. And then we made the trade. Yep. Oh.
What a wonderful what if, huh?
Yes. My heart just aches to this day about that one. And I kind of liked Belpedio, but then it's like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want another what if for Tampa Bay and the Wild. What if Tyler Johnson doesn't hurt his knee and the Wild waits and decides, we'll wait to sign him, but in the end he signs with Tampa Bay instead. That would have been an undrafted free agent that would have turned out. Think of how that could have helped us.
Yeah, huge. That would have been huge. It could go on forever.
Yeah.
It could.
But I mean, you can keep yourself up all night, thinking about these kinds of things. Yep. But again, that's part of the luck of it all. And there's also, for all the luck in the world, there's also misfortune. And that can happen too,
Yep. There's even dare I throw in one more? I probably shouldn't because I just keep dragging stuff. But the way back in the day, like Lou Nanny will talk about the story of, or he was going to take Mark Messier, that guy, and then he wanted to wait one more round, I guess, because I forget what was it. Like there was some kind of a trade that took place, where Edmonton traded up and got him. It was something like related to that.
Yeah.
So they basically 2 teams wanted Messier around that point, and then they got it just ahead of the North Stars, which would have changed 80s North Stars history quite a bit, and the Oilers' history quite a bit, I'm sure.
Oh, there's so many scenarios where that kind of stuff happens. Whether it's a flip of a coin, or if it's just a matter of circumstance. where it may not seem significant at the time, but then suddenly there's a ripple effect, and then you realize what you missed out on. Hindsight's always perfect in saying, why did you not take that person? It's so obvious. Well, it's easy when you're not
back
the
then,
one
probably not.
It's easy when you're not the one making the decisions. And well, and even though a lot of people think a certain player is going to be the first overall pick, only history will tell us later on who was the best player out of that draft class. If you had to look at the draft that 2015 when Kirill Kaprizov was selected, he probably wouldn't be considered a fifth round pick anymore. No one knew that at the time. So there's definitely that element of fortune, and unfortunately for the Wild, they just don't have a lot of it to look back at and say, hey, we got that one. We have one, so now hopefully we can build from there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, like if it was all accurate and everything was together, he would have maybe gone third, fourth, fifth, something like that. Because obviously, Marner, Eichel, but Eichel, pardon me, not Eichel, but Eichel. I'm not a big fan of his. Honestly, I'm just not. So with the Wild, we have the 2 picks, and I apologize if I sound a little distracted at the moment. I guess within the last half hour, dare I mention this, I don't want to talk about basketball right now. That's for a different podcast. But the Wolves made a insane trade, I guess, just now for Rudy Gobert. I guess one of the defensive players of the year type of guys from the Utah Jazz. So apologize if I seem a little bit weird. What the hell is going on?
I'm gonna sound like a completely ignorant person. He was the guy that made the joke. He was the guy that made the joke about COVID and then got it right.
Yep.
Pretty sure that was that guy. Yep.
He's just like me. Okay, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm really not. But I mean, I just remember that. I just remember that when it happened because it was like in a strange way it was karma.
Yeah,
joke about it and then
he had
you
it
get
coming.
It's not so funny anymore.
Yeah. He had it coming once he did that, and then he passed it to his teammates too. But yeah, now he's gonna pass to the Timberwolves, hopefully without COVID, and it's gonna be interesting. Stay tuned for Timberwolves explosion, free agency, and draft review coming up in the next, God knows, couple of weeks or so. So that's gonna be real interesting. Rudy Gobert coming to the Wolves, the Bear. No, I'm kidding. He's actually the Eiffel Tower is what he really is because he's from Fonzie. So back to where I should be.
Yeah.
Now that everything is freezing, but at least we know where the picks are. The Wolves will be picking 19th and 24th. 19th is courtesy of Los Angeles Kings. I just call them the Timberwolves. The Wild. Sorry. Oh my God.
I was like thinking, my God, the Wolves are picking the same ones.
Yeah.
What are the chances?
We're going to take the next Rudy Gobert there because he'll develop in the ABL, American Basketball League.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm teasing. Even they have a minor league affiliate in Iowa, if you could believe that. The Iowa Wolves.
Okay.
It's just kind of funny when you think about that. But I like to use mock drafts as cheat sheets. Obviously, you're a bit more established when it comes to knowing the prospects that could be hanging around in those areas. So at the end of the day, though, I mean, right now this mock draft, what is it? MyNHLDraft.com.
Yep.
They have Leon Bushell coming to Minnesota, a left-handed defenseman. Okay, let's.
Leon Bixel.
6'5". Leon Bixel.
Yeah,
sorry about the poor accent there.
He's a 6'5" defenseman from Switzerland.
I read about it with your article.
Yeah, he plays for Leksand in the Swedish Lead Serien, their top league, and he's a freaking wrecking ball on skates. He likes to hit. He's a stay-at-home kind of guy, but he does have a pretty big shot too. He's mobile, and he's already got his, as I wrote in my article, he already has his man body. He's 225 already, so he's already a man, and he's played in the pro level. So one would think that would make the wait time on him a little bit shorter. Even though I would like the pick because he gives us something we don't have, which is a bigger physical defenseman, which is something that's really not in our pool. All of our, as I point out in my defenseman article, sorry if I keep sounding like I'm bringing that up, but it's out there.
Oh, that's fine.
Is
it's
the
out there.
the fact that if you look at the pool of defensemen, they're all 6'1" or less. Our tallest guy are 6'1". I think Simon Johansson's 6'2", but otherwise they're all sub 6'1" players for the most part. And I'm not saying that you can't be an effective player if you're not over 6'1", but as we have seen in the postseason, the Wild has a tendency at times to be able to get pushed around because who do we got out there? We got a 5 foot, probably being generous, 5'9", 5'8" Jared Spurgeon, a 6 foot or 5'11" Matt Dumba, Alex Goligoski I think is 5'11" or 6 feet tall, and they're on the lighter side, and we get pushed around in the tough areas. When there's a battle for the puck near the crease, we're just not big and strong enough to keep the crease clear, and they get those second chance opportunities. So at some point you got to have a bigger player, a stronger player in the lineup, and Bixel would certainly be that. My only, again, question is, we kind of talked about it a lot earlier in since we started talking, was the log jam for defensemen is there. I mean, that's a real deal. We already mentioned there's 6 players that are sitting there in the queue, as you would say, waiting for their turn. And while I like the player, the question is well, who's giving up the roster spot? I mean, I think obviously you would make room for that player, but then again, there's another spot that the other 6 guys won't have. So I don't know.
It's like playing Tetris. Yeah.
Exactly. It's at that point where you're about 3/4 of the way up the little column thing, and you accidentally hit the button one too many times, and you have that little one square of space that's been left open, and you're like, shit, what am I gonna do? And now you're really scrambling, right? And the music's speeding up. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. It is like Tetris. That's what contracts are. It's a contractual Tetris.
It's the dun 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 dun. Yeah, I mean that's what it's turning into. We call it defenseman Tetris.
Yep.
Bill Guerin's defensive Tetris, or defenseman Tetris. Pardon me. Yeah, that's what it's definitely becoming. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh no. But I mean, the size though is obviously, I guess that's a position of need, and it's still in a sense with the size part. And if he's the best player available, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, if the Wild do pick Leon Bixel, which again I would not have a problem with, he is my spoiler alert for my article, even though it's been posted for over a week now. He is the top defenseman I had identified, so that's my top target. And I do think there's a realistic chance that he could be available at 19 and 24. That being said, if the Wild make that selection and they pick Bixel at 19 per se, I would think that means a trade is coming. That you're going to be trading. Yeah. You're going to be trading somebody out of your top 4, because, or at least in the next year, you're going to be doing it because you got to give him a spot. You're going to want to give him a spot. So, I remember back in 2011 when the draft was in St. Paul, and the Wild selected Jonas Brodin, and we at the time we had a contract situation brewing with Brent Burns, and my buddy Bruce, who went to the draft with me along with Teresa, my wife. Soon as we drafted Brodin, who at the time we had never heard of that guy, he turned to me and he said, "I guess Brent Burns is gone." And then sure enough, like 30 minutes
Yeah,
later,
yep.
we have a trade to announce, and that was the Devin Setaguchi for Brent Burns and
Yep.
Charlie Coyle in the 28th overall pick in 2011, which was the bust that was Zach Phillips.
Yep.
But I mean, oh yeah, I know. But I mean but the thing is, to me, if you draft a defenseman, then that means you're going to start making changes to your blue line. And again,
yeah,
I know he does.
many,
I know
yeah.
he wants to talk about they, but Matt Dumba is your logical. It is the logical move there. I mean, getting rid of Kulikov. I mean, that doesn't do too much. And again, it doesn't. But if you're going for Leon Bixel, it's because you want him to be in probably your top 4. Yeah, and then if I'm Brock Faber, I'm going, wait a minute, thought that was mine.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, the only hope would be is just because he's a left shot. That's the only hope, unless it's the only hope.
Do you know if that mock draft was maybe put together before the Kevin Fiala trade?
It looks like it was. It looks like it was. Oh yeah, June 30th. So and it does show it as Minnesota Wild at 19.
Okay.
So it looks like it was, even though that does seem kind of funny.
Okay,
because,
so then who did they have as at 24 then?
No, I'm kidding.
Another defenseman.
I had to say another defenseman.
You get a defenseman.
Don't make me laugh.
It's Oprah.
It's like no, they're not making a trade. They're not making a trade at all. No, it's Jagger.
Oh, Jagger Fergus from Moose Jaw.
Moose Jaw. Yep. It's 5'10". Yeah,
so
but not big.
So he's a right winger, I think.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not a real fan of his. Part of it is it has nothing to do with his size, but even though he's a smaller player, skating, they said it was okay. And when I hear skater, I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's a bust.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Because I find it hard to play. I find it hard for those players to stick. And to me, they need now, with what they gave up with Fiala, they got to find a place where they can start replacing the offense they've lost. And not just for, next year will be what it is, but for the foreseeable future, you need to start developing scoring wingers. You need to start developing more offense from your top 6. So you better get a center who you believe maybe has a good shot to make in your top 6, or a scoring winger. And Jagger Fergus is not that player, in my opinion. I would hope there would be other options. I mean, I'm not looking at I'm not looking at that same mock you have in front of you, but I would hope we could do better than that.
Yeah, like the guys in the area. There's like Rutger McGordy.
McGordy. He's a bigger. He's 6'1", but his skating is rough. I mean, it's okay for junior level because of the time and space that he has, and he's playing on the U.S. National Development Team, which has loads of skill, and he can get away with it there. But when the level of play gets faster, time and space are reduced, to me, your skating becomes more problematic. And I even saw in one assessment on Rutger McGordy, this was from Corey Pronman of The Athletic, he even suggested the skating was bad enough that he might not even make the NHL. And that's that.
Zach Phillips? No.
Exactly. That was exactly my comment. Yeah. Like when we drafted Zach Phillips, I knew he was a bad skater. I knew that, and I was mortified when we made that pick because he had a big year with St. John that year because that was a Memorial Cup qualifying team that he was on that had like Jonathan Huberdeau and Charlie Coyle on it. And he had a big year as the second line center. That was the other red flag to me too. He's a second line center on a really good team. So he had all kinds of points, but you know, I also saw very few situations where he was like you could tell he wasn't a fast player. And sure enough, that dogged him in as a pro, and he flamed out pretty quickly. You know, I think he's playing in England now.
Is that Phillips?
Yeah, I think that was the last I heard, that he was playing in England. Either that or Austria.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely overseas.
Yeah, he's definitely in Europe.
I could try to check. Yeah, Zach Phillips, 28th pack cap, and he is in, it looks like German, Rosenheim Starbulls.
Oh, yeah, he's in, that
Germany.
That might even be like their Division II league, too.
And only, well, I guess he's more than a point a game player, though. No, I'm kidding.
Well, geez, bring him back.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's not
he's
doing
like a minus.
Yeah.
No, 14 points in 300 games. No.
Man.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It happens too often. I hope we don't make the same mistake. So, apologize for this. Okay, there's Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy Snuggerud. He's a right winger.
Yeah.
And then obviously
he's from
go ahead.
He's from Chaska, Chanhassen area.
Yeah.
I think he's the.
That was one you mentioned. Yeah, I remember you mentioned that one. Oh yeah, and he's with the Gophers. Yeah, or he's going to be part of it.
I'm trying to think if he's the son of Dave Snuggerud or the nephew. It's one of the two.
Yeah, 'cause I remember that name so well.
Oh, Dave Snuggerud. Dave Snuggerud was great.
Yeah.
As a Gopher, as a pro, it didn't last long.
No.
But I mean, Jimmy Snuggerud's a good player. Again, plays in the U.S. national development team. In the games I saw him play at they had I think it's the under 18 tournament, the Ivan Holinka. He didn't really stand out to me very much. He was not the player. I mean, he was okay, but he wasn't the player that was, to me, stirring the drink. You know, he wasn't the driver of the offense. And if we're taking a player in the first round, I want to see a player that's driving the offense, the one that's making things happen, because you want an impact player. You don't want a guy that's going to be more of a role player. You want a player that's going to be making a difference. And I just didn't see enough there. His skating, again, was another, not that sounds like that's the only thing I care about, but to me that's a fundamental thing as a hockey player that you either have or you don't. You know? And because all these kids in today's day and age, you know your deficiencies probably much more acutely than they ever did like 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, you know if you have a weak shot. You know if you are not a physical player. You're going to be all acutely aware of that. So your skating is obviously a real big part of the game of hockey. And these kids have all worked with skating coaches. They've all done with that. So I don't think that it's not like suddenly they get drafted and then suddenly they realize they're not a great skater. Like, I didn't know that. Someone's talked to them and said, you might want to work on this, and they probably have worked a lot on it. So to me, what you see is what you get. They're not going to suddenly be drafted and then suddenly they were a terrible skater, but now they're fantastic. It just doesn't work out that way, because if it was easy as just working hard to become a fantastic skater, no one would be a bad skater.
They'd find a way,
yeah,
right?
I mean, if I, same thing like, it's like speed, a person, whether they're fast or not. If it took was hard work to be fast, there would be no slow people. It just wouldn't be. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't take steps to make the most of what you have, but you're either fast or you're not. You're either going to be a good skater mechanically, because that's all like in your mind. I mean, it's technique. There's a lot of things, but a naturally gifted person, they're probably going to be better than the person who has to work on it a ton just to get it functional. Like Mikael Granlund improved his skating when he got drafted by the Wild, but it didn't he didn't become a fast player because of it. He became functional, which is different. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean he's bad, but his skating wasn't gonna. That wasn't why he was. That wasn't what made him special.
Yeah, it was his techniques. Huh?
Yeah, it was his hands.
His stick handling.
His hands, you know,
his hands. Stick handling.
His on ice intelligence. He had good vision in the offensive zone. You know, I mean,
exactly.
So, but at the same time, you know, what would he be much better if he was a good skater combined with that? Yes, he would be much more dangerous. He would be a superstar instead of a good player. He's a good player.
I so wish.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's the difference. You know, that's why a talent like Nathan McKinnon is special, or Connor McDavid, because they're fast and they have all those things.
It's the combination. You have to have both.
Yeah.
Like Kirill Kaprizov.
Yeah, and if we have a choice, all things being equal, I want to be able to move, because I think it's more and more of a speed league every year.
Yep. The slower we get, the less likely we're going to get anywhere. We're just going to get outskated and all that same old stuff. That's how the Sharks lost to the Penguins. You know, things like that. The Penguins just they just beat them.
They could skate circles around the Sharks. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I was rooting for the Sharks.
Me too.
I felt that was a team that had paid its dues, was getting its chance, and yet they looked like they were standing still compared to the Penguins. You know, Brian Rust and Matt Cullen, they were flying all over the ice, and the Sharks just were one or two steps behind them. They couldn't keep up.
I'll never forget. Yeah, I'll never forget how Joe Pavelski called into. They had somehow, some way, they were able to get Joe Pavelski to call into Paul Allen, believe it or not, during the Cup Finals. And I just remember his voice after 2 games in. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's like he was just he was exhausted. Yeah, it was just like, "Oh, I get it," you know. So it's like you could just tell they're gonna lose.
It's a grind. I mean, even look at Tampa Bay. In previous years, Tampa Bay was the team that was just overwhelming teams with speed and all that. And I think with some of the moves that they've made, some of the guys that they had let go, and replaced them kind of a little bit more with older players as opposed to younger players, I think they got a little bit slower. And not only that, the accumulation of 3 years of long postseason runs seemed to catch up to them, and they look like they were running on fumes going against Colorado. They're probably lucky the series lasted as long as it did.
It did feel like that, didn't it?
After the first 2 games, it looked like a sweep was going to happen. It really did.
Yeah. Oh, especially the 7-0.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I was just like, okay, this is dumb. You know, it took the fun out of it all, but it's like you just knew, obviously multiple Cup runs, they're not going to have the same energy that Colorado did, and obviously the hunger level will never be exactly the same as going after your first. Even though I'm sure some people have that hunger level forever compared to certain teams that may never have it. Obviously, like the Parisi Suter era. Yep.
Oh, I think they definitely had the want to. I just don't think the legs were gonna. Yeah. The legs just didn't have it in them anymore. And like I don't know. I said this on Twitter just moments after it was all said and done. But there'd be quite a few teams that would gladly trade with the Tampa Bay Lightning for the run that they've had the last 3 years.
Oh God, yes. I'm like on my hands and knees right now.
2 Stanley Cups and a Stanley Cup final in 3 years.
Yeah,
that's pretty. That's pretty rare these days. You know, Pittsburgh.
The third one would be a bummer, but yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Pittsburgh's the only other team recently that can kind of say that they've kind of experienced that. I think So
back to backs, yeah. Yeah, they had one way back in the early 90s, and then, of course, in just recently, 16-17. Other than that, it was
they,
like the New York Islanders.
They had back-to-back in the early 90s, yeah.
Yep, 92, 90, 91, 92, and then of course 16, 17. Yeah, it's like they were the most recent one before 16, 17.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they were like the spread out dynasties of Chicago, where it wasn't that spread out, but spread out enough, I guess.
Yeah.
About 3 cups in 5 years. That's pretty good. New York, San Francisco Giants style, every other year.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, of course, you're going all the way back to the New York Islanders to get a three-peat and quad squad or whatever you want to call the four-peat,
Well,
that's a long time.
It's not easy in today's day and age, especially in the salary cap world. So, I mean...
Yep. Just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it seems like as soon as you get good, then people become too expensive. I mean, if anyone's looking for a silver lining from Wild fans about Colorado winning as opposed to, well, I guess really anybody else, is that it may have priced a few players out of Colorado. Because now you got the Stanley Cup on your resume. Usually that allows you to have leverage for a little bit more money, and maybe some guys leave a little bit earlier now because now they're seeking, to monetize that accomplishment a bit. So, maybe that'll help bring about the dismantling of Colorado a little bit quicker now.
Hopefully,
yeah. If you're looking for that,
Yeah, it's like, look at Chicago. Obviously it felt like they were good forever, but it was about 5, 7, 8 years, and then 5, 7ish, something like that, and then all of a sudden, once they got suddenly swept by Nashville in the first round, and after that was kind of it, basically.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the cap and age just took over.
Yeah. Well, and they had to
boom.
They had to part ways with people. I mean, I remember when.
It's the cap. Yeah. Go ahead.
Dustin Byfuglien had to leave because didn't Dale Talon make like kind of a mistake? I think I remember. He had I don't remember. He had signed somebody else, and then they suddenly couldn't afford people, so then they had to ship people out. And that led to kind of some salary dumps here and there. And again, that's kind of what maybe you hope for with, okay, you won your Stanley Cup, but now you're going to have to maybe part with some more people than you would otherwise. Did you lose me?
Oh no, I'm here.
Okay, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, nope, I'm sorry. I was too quiet. But no, yeah, I think that's exactly, that could be exactly where things are heading, where people leave early because they want to get paid, and the salary cap is still pretty damn tight, as we know very well around here. And the Blackhawks know, and this team knows, and that team knows, right? The Penguins, you could say too, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Because they've stayed, they've stayed competitive like a San Antonio Spurs in the NBA, but the championships aren't there anymore.
Nope.
So.
Nope.
Yeah. Is there any other names you want to mention? There's like the Yuri Kulich, guys like that,
for the draft.
Was there any like another name or two you'd want to mention before we go to fan and direction?
I guess for forwards, there's a couple players to me that I think are intriguing. I think number one on my list was. Oh shoot! I have the article right in front of me. I'll just look. I know that's a way to cheat, but I don't know.
Yeah, but it's your own article.
Well,
so definitely check that out. And I could tell the audience too. Yeah, definitely check out what if you haven't yet, what Derek has written for. It's on the Sports Daily.
Yeah. So what I've done is
at Crease and Assist. Yeah.
I've made previews for. At least in regards to the focus on the first pick, first round pick, and so I profiled 5 forwards, I profiled 5 defensemen, and then I just profiled 3 goaltenders because this is not a really good goaltending class. The thing is once you get past the top 3, who are NHL body, big goalies, then it goes down to guys that are under 6 feet tall, and those guys have you talk about in today's, like we mentioned before about defensemen, it's even tougher to be a sub 6 foot goaltender now. You have almost no chance because the way TMs look at you is that you're just giving up so much net because you're not filling the crease the way a 6'4" person will. You just have almost no shot. Like I think there's only 2 goaltenders in the NHL that are under 6 feet, or maybe 3. I think Alex Nedeljkovic, Yusei Saros, and Andrei Pavlich are the only 3 that I know of that are under 6 feet. Otherwise, everyone's at least 6'1" or taller. So anyway, that's why I only profiled 3 goalies. And then I have a sleeper and steals one, which are more about later round guys. So the top one I have is Danila Yurov, Russian player, very talented, very gifted. But the thing, like we just actually saw news about it today, there was a goaltending prospect that the Flyers wanted to bring in from Russia, and Russia detained him. They wouldn't let him leave.
Uh-oh.
And of course, that is the GM's worst nightmare if you have Russian players. Will Russia would let them leave, given the international, situation obviously continuing to go on between Russia and the Ukraine, and the United States support more or less of Ukraine. I'm not getting really into any kind of political part of it, but the idea is that it's kind of seen as political retribution, is it not? Where Russia's like, you support them, well, guess what? You're not getting your player. We'll hurt your league.
Oh, man.
Kaprizov goes back to Russia. I have no doubt that the Wild are like thinking like, holy shit, what will we have to pull like a Stan Musial or not František Musial situation? Do you ever hear that story about Lou Nanny sneaking him out in a rental car in Albania?
Oh yeah.
People see, like, especially younger generations who didn't live during the Cold War, they don't understand what it was like when players literally defected. Like, they literally had to like sneak out of their country to come and play in the NHL. And we might see stuff like that again, where we hear these harrowing stories about, secret rendezvous in airports and sneaking out in a rental car and stuff like that. That might happen all over again. And so with the Russian player, again, does that make a talented player like him slide because people are afraid, can we get him out of Russia? And so that might work to the Wild's benefit. But he can score, he can pass, he's fast, can play either wing, very smart. Then I have Isaac Howard, smaller player, goal scorer, reminds me a lot of like Cole Caulfield, but kind of an offense-only kind of kid. He has one skill, and he's good at it, but in terms of the attention to detail on the other sides of it, not so much. I'm a little less bullish on him. I know that at least in our team, we seem to full value guys that play at both ends of the ice. Next is Marco Kasper. He's a center. He's Austrian. He's bigger. Played in Sweden last year, and he sounds like a bigger version of Marco Rossi. Like, just smart, very mature, both physically and mentally for his age. Plays all over the ice, 200-foot game, hard worker, and has some offensive skill as well. Kind of a really well-rounded player, very kind of a safer pick, but a player that sounds like, he's 6'1" as opposed to like Rossi, who's like 5'9". So he might be able to take the abuse a little bit better, but he's a good player. Another one is Yuri Kulich. He's from Czechia. I like him a lot because
that's one I like.
He sounds really good. Sounds like a lot of his
center,
he could either be center or the wing. Played again against men in the Czech Super League, so he wasn't playing against kids. He was playing against grown men. and held his own. Sounds kind of a lot like Kevin Fiala kind of player, where
Ooh.
you have
the
goal scorer can create on his own. But the other thing is he's also defensively responsible. So even though he's really good offensively, he also is versatile enough defensively, which again, that's versatility. It means that, he can do more than one thing. And usually that means, from a patience level, a coach is going to have more patience if a guy is chipping in at both ends of the ice than if he's only trying hard in the offensive zone and doesn't, care about the defensive side of it. And then the last one I have that I profiled is a bit of a wild card, no pun intended, is Brad Lambert. Even though his name sounds like he's North American, that's because his dad is Canadian, but his dad played professionally in Finland, so he's from Finland. Absolutely, he's an absolutely beautiful skater. Probably one of the smoothest strides in the whole draft. He definitely skates at a different level than the rest of the peers around him. So, like, when you see him on the ice, the skating jumps out immediately because he can just pull away from people. But where it kind of comes a little bit on the risky side of it is, and he can make really good plays at times, but there's also places where he makes almost mind-numbingly stupid plays. And by mind-numbingly stupid, I mean like he has the time and space, and instead of maybe taking a shot, he tries to pass it to a person that isn't even looking for the puck. So, like, a lot of the question on him is, does he have the quote-unquote hockey smarts? Because physically, from a talent perspective, in terms of skating, hands, he's got that. But does he have it between the ears to put it all together? Because he has the ability, he has the athletic gifts that make him potentially a really special player, but is he smart? And so that's really kind of the question they have, which is, again, a reason why this guy might slide to us, even though he might be the best pure skater in the draft. So I don't know. That's I mean, let's face it. That's how you get guys in the mid to late rounds. Is you get guys that have at least maybe one question mark about them. With Yurov, the Russian, it's the Russian factor. That's the question mark. It's not his ability. It's not his his skills. It's, well, when will you see that guy? 2 years from now? 3 years from now? Never. Will Russia just say niet to all players coming? Well, that's a realistic possibility.
They might. They might.
I mean, I'm not going to try to get in the head of Vladimir Putin, but I mean, he could totally do that. I mean, even though economically speaking, would that hurt the United States by not allowing Danila Yurov to come play for the Wild? No, but symbolically, it's kind of a middle finger to the West, if he did that. And I would think at this point he probably would entertain that move because he's not happy about things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, that's what allows a person to slide to you. So the question is do you take that risk and draft a player like that? Yeah. But to me, the talent is there. So when you're in the mid rounds, do you try to swing for home runs instead of going for the safe pick? So to me, there's options for both. There's safe guys where maybe you're not worried about those kinds of will he be available kind of things. But then there's an element of risk with it that you have to accept. So that would be the people that I think the Wild would be looking towards. I know there's other people that like other forwards, but for me, skating and scoring are the two qualities, or ability to play as a top six centerman. That's really what this team and organization is needed forever. And the more prospects we have that can potentially play that role, the better I feel. If we're just going with Marco Rossi and putting it all on his little shoulders, and Murat Huznadinov, who we know we won't see for at least 2 more years, I don't know if I like that.
We're stuck.
And again, I'm not saying those two guys are bad. I'm just saying that you want more options. You know, certainly have plenty of options in the defensive core. we already talked about that. So to me, you gotta start building down the middle, or building up and finding some guys that are going to be your future goal scorers. We need the offense to come from somewhere besides number 97. That's going to be the challenge, both in the short term and the long term.
Yeah, and of course replacing the 85 points, which will be one of the major conversations. Yep. Yeah.
So that's all I got to say about that.
Oh no, and that's good. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, thank you very, very, very much. Yep, definitely gave us a lot of insight there about the oncoming draft and the players we could be looking at going forward. Me personally, from the group that you mentioned, I think I like that Ulich the most.
Coolidge?
I'm thinking those are right. Coolidge, yep, I have the right. Coolidge, sorry, I had the wrong people here.
The more I think about it, he's probably my ideal candidate.
Yeah, I like him the most. Yuri Coolidge, that's why I said Ulich.
Yeah.
Talking too fast. Yep.
I think he's got the best. I think all things being what they are, like Yurov is basically a top 10 talent. So you really would have to hope he would start to slide. But Coolidge, I think, is a very realistic target. You know, I mean, you could sit there and have a draft talk about Shane Wright being great, but you're not going to get him. So why talk about it? You know,
it's too far.
So to me, it's important.
That's boring, yeah.
Well, but it's not as much boring as it is. It's just pointless. I mean, talk about the targets you have a realistic chance of getting. Now, I don't think the Wild are going to somehow try to, trade their way into the top 10. I know that was really the hope before we traded Fiala, that we would somehow get New Jersey's numbers, or New Jersey's pick, or Ottawa's pick, but I don't think that's going to happen now. I don't think there's anything that we have other than picks. I don't think I don't think you're gonna. I don't think it's likely we're gonna trade up that way. I just don't. I just don't see it.
Yeah. Because we only got to 19 with Fiala, so, and the other player, of course. But with that said, would you like to take a break, or would you like to jump into fan interaction?
Well, if you want to break this up right now, you can. But I can jump into fan interaction whenever.
Okay. What do you think? Do you wanna jump into fan interaction right now, or do you wanna?
We can do that now.
You want me to hit? Okay, yeah, we can always keep rolling real quick and then wrap this thing up. It's a big show, which is okay. Obviously, it's a lot of fun.
Well, if you want it, again, this is probably something you'd edit out. But if you wanted, you could maybe break it into 2 shows.
Probably can't. This is the state of the Wild. It's usually I like to kind of set it up this way. Yeah,
it was just an idea.
Maybe. Oh, it's okay. Yep.
Okay.
It's on the fly show planning, I suppose. So we'll jump right into I don't know why this thing is in the way. So hashtag BDWMN. Hashtag BDWMN. I probably could have done it in multiple shows in the past, but at this point, might as well just go about it this way. So we already did the MVP and all that. I think most people know the MVP of the Wild is, and it's pretty obvious. So why doesn't? Okay, yeah, okay, that wasn't too long. All right, fixed it. Okay, so you were commenting on. Okay, the MVP. You were saying again the actual Twitter account is @BraveTheWild, @BraveTheWild. You were saying @Crease and Assist. Derek Felska, of course, was saying, I would like to say it was a close race, but it really wasn't. This is for the MVP. Fiala may have had an outside chance until disappointing until in the postseason. Zuccarello is worth an honorable mention, with Jonas Brodin deserving a few notes also. Yep, so there's that. You were also commenting, of course, this is again just before that June 30th when you sent out the bat signal. You were saying the Arizona Coyotes are starting to plan to build a $2 billion facility in Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah.
Part of that plan possibly includes a 30-year non-relocation agreement. In this wise, why is the NHL so oddly committed? Yep. So that's something we pretty much talked about for a while. Was Arizona? What the heck? What's the mystery there? Other than I guess somehow they've gotten some nice players from the Southwest. Obviously, Austin Matthews, right? Zucker's decent, but I'd rather. I'll take 10. I'll take Austin Matthews 10 out of 10 times over anybody around Jason Zucker's level.
Well, Nyes, the Nyes kid from for the Gophers, he's from Arizona too.
Oh yeah.
So
so
they've had some.
They're starting to pop up.
But does that mean you give them a 30-year non-relocation agreement?
Yeah. No.
given
I don't know.
Given the fact that they've had ownership that has, first of all, it's been dysfunctional to put it kindly. Between not paying bills, those are some really ugly things to think about. That a person who is probably very, very wealthy is not paying, vendors and things like that and other kinds of shady stuff. I don't think I would want to say, well, sure, we'll give you a 30-year agreement now. I realize while to the community that's making an arena, they would like that kind of commitment if they're going to put the $2 billion to build it. But at the same time, I think if I was the league, I'd be like, well, then you better not have any problems with bills anymore. Because otherwise it's going to end up being the league's, they're going to become for lack of a better comparison, like a ward of the state. Then the league will have to run the team again, like they did in the mid 2000s, when basically they couldn't find an owner and the league just kind of had to hold it.
Yeah, that was stupid.
And then that's really where the Arizona Coyotes became the boneyard of the NHL. Where you need to store a crappy contract. Well, welcome to the desert, because here you go.
Let's go.
And that's what they've been.
Yeah.
It's where NHL careers go to fade away, and while they enjoy the nice weather.
I would. Yeah.
But then they're the road team 82 nights of the year, because fans from other teams fill up their arena to go cheer for them on the road because it's a nice trip to the Southwest.
Yeah, it's a destination. Yep. Even like Vegas, somehow they get fans in there. But still, it's Vegas. It is what it is. It's basically a big travel city. Like, who actually lives there, right?
Well, and if they live there, they're either not going to the games,
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They're betting. Betting, gambling, or enjoying the Grand Canyon, right?
Yeah, although that's a pretty far distance from Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
It's about a 4-hour drive.
Oh yeah.
It's in northwestern.
Yeah, that's true.
Northwestern Arizona. So I don't know. I went there when I was in 5th grade. So I remember spending time in Phoenix and then driving up to Flagstaff near where the Grand Canyon is.
Oh, that's cool.
It was a nice trip.
That must have been fun. Yeah, I bet. Had a nice, yep. We had one similar to that, not in the same area, but close to the area in '93. But that's like so long ago. I wish I could go back again. I miss those days. But and then you open things up. This is where the bat signal is sent. You say, with the NHL draft and free agency coming up soon, do you have a Minnesota Wild question on your mind? Ask Brave the Wild. Tag your questions, hashtag BTWMN, and ask as many as you wish. Please retweet. Yep. And yes, thank you very much for that. Looks like there might have been... Okay, so these are like replies. At least a couple of them are.
Okay.
Yeah, because these don't have the hashtag on them, so it's probably good that I just look at that real quick and not miss them. So, Brian Herrera Another one, yeah, like Jay Bushy has the hashtag, so I'll probably pick that up in that list.
Sure.
That way I won't get confused. Yep. So Brian Herrera says, "Oh, I guess that one does have hashtag." One of these says, "What UFA player do you think the Wild should resign? Which one do you think they should try for in free agency? In the free agency mad grab." So obviously the unrestricted free agents. Right now, I don't think there's a single UFA I want to keep. Honestly, like Jordy Ben, no.
Nope.
I don't really want to keep. I don't want to keep Fleury. I don't want to keep Marc-Andre Fleury.
Nope.
Am I crazy?
No.
Nope.
I don't. I guess I don't see what he adds. The only thing is, then you're obviously gonna have to get a backup.
Yeah.
And you want to get a backup that you know you can at least use 20 times, at least. Good for 20 starts. You don't want a player where they'll only play if they absolutely have to, because you don't want Cam Talbot to get tired out. As a player who's, I think he's 35, isn't he now? He's 34. Cam Talbot's 34.
34, yeah. Yep, turning 35,
Yeah.
soon. And then Fleury's 37. Ugh.
Yeah.
I don't see that. He's been average. Yep.
I wouldn't want Nick Bugstad or Nicolas Delorier back either.
Nope. No, I'm okay. Yeah.
I'd say give those roster spots to younger players.
Yeah. I think it's time to give it to somebody, obviously. And of course, one of the defensive spots obviously can go to a restricted free agent, Jacob Middleton, if we're able to keep him around. They're saying anywhere from like 2 to 3-ish. Because at first they were even talking like 4, and it's like, oh, no, he's not that good.
No.
He's not that good.
No.
That's insane. I'm hoping Kulikov's contract, I mean, that's expensive for what we gave him, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
That kind of ticks me off, actually. But, yeah, I mean, we need a young backup. I wouldn't have minded just not making the damn trade in the first place, unless it was just, I don't know, but I guess Middleton was a nice addition. Unfortunately, it didn't do us a whole lot of good in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I know he had, there was the one mistake that, remember, Russo went into detail about,
Are you still there?
Then suddenly Fleury plays the puck, and then he lost his the player he was supposed to be, the forward that was rushing towards him. He lost track of him, and then that led to an easy goal. But I thought overall Middleton looked pretty good. He was probably I don't know. I felt he was the kind of player that we really had been missing, and I think even the management recognized he was a player that gave us a body type that we really didn't have, and a mentality that we didn't really have. And I mean, no, he's not meant to be in your top 4, but he's definitely the kind of guy you want in your bottom pairing, and then as a guy who is used on the penalty kill. He does the tough stuff. He does the the physical things, and we. Like we mentioned before when we talked way back about defenseman prospects, we don't have body types like him in our system. We don't.
Yeah, we need him. Yeah.
So that to me makes him something we need to keep in the group. But yeah, there isn't a whole. I mean, if there's any benefit, there isn't a whole heck of a lot of at least unrestricted free agent decisions to be made by the team right now. And I think most of them, most of them you make with not too much. I mean, even Marc-Andre Fleury, do you really feel bad if you can't re-sign him?
No, I don't.
I mean, he just becomes a trivia question then. Like, what Hall of Fame goalie, briefly played for the Wild? Now you got your trivia answer. But otherwise,
just
I think overall him coming here was, I don't know, kind of forgettable.
Yeah. I think also.
I mean, it made for news for one day. It gave us a distraction, but you know, he clearly wasn't. He's not the same player he was, and that doesn't mean his legacy is tarnished or anything. It just, you know, it at this point, it's not going to matter. So why do it?
Yeah, and really for free agency, like unrestricted free agency pool, or you know, throw your name in the hat, whatever you'd want to call it, is two names I would look at would both be goalies, because if we're not going to re-sign Fleury, of course you want to look at someone else, like in the goaltending, like Ville Husto is a name. Obviously, he only made $750 last year. I don't think he's going to get that small amount now.
No.
That'd be nice, but. That would be nice. Okay, sure, but unfortunately, I doubt that.
And let's
and of
I
course,
think that would be a tough decision for the Blues to make. I mean, while they soured on him eventually, and he got supplanted by Binnington in the playoffs in the regular season, Husso supplanted Binnington. So you know, if I'm the Blues, I wouldn't exactly be wanting just to kick him out the door either.
Yeah, that'd be a mistake.
But hey,
they would regret it.
I would gladly step in if he's willing to come here for, you know, $2-3 million maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's the neighborhood I'm talking about. 2 or 3, or that I'm thinking about.
Because
is about that. If we could get him, yeah.
Because let's face it, we're just trying to buy time for Jesper Wallstedt. That's really what we're looking to do right now. We're not looking for the person that's going to carry us to a Stanley Cup this year. I don't think.
Yeah.
Even the most optimistic Wild fan, I think you'd have a hard time saying, "Oh yeah, we're definitely a Cup contender." I don't see that.
No.
I think you have to be pretty delusional to believe that. So, to me, you're buying time, and I'd rather save money than get myself into if Fleury's only going to stay here if we sign him for 3 years. I don't want that.
No, that's stupid.
You know what I mean?
That would be stupid. Yeah. Well, yeah, very well. Yep. Like Holtby, I guess he made $2 million with Dallas. He's about 33, almost. Jack Campbell's one I like a lot. He made less than 2. He was it 1.6, but he was very good with Toronto. But but yeah, before Toronto, he wasn't good, was he?
Yeah. No. I don't think he's gonna want to come here to be that. Not at his stage in his career.
No. Because he's finally breaking through, like the Devin Dubnyks of the world. He'd want a 5-7 year contract, something like that. You know?
Even Husso might be like, you know what, been there, done that. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I'm not a backup. Yep. So it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough to say, honestly. Other than
is Grice available? I thought he might be, but
Yep. Yep, at about 36.5, he's available. Thomas Grice.
He would be a person because he's been a backup his whole life. Like, and I don't.
And when he's good, he's good.
Yeah, he did not have a great season with Detroit last year.
No. Nope. Yeah, and then Detroit's kind of what they are. They're still obviously like a couple of years away at the very least. But Schneider's kind of what he's been.
But if you're looking, I mean, let's face it. Grice has been a stopgap for his entire career. It's a role I think he would accept at 36. You know,
it wouldn't kill me. Yeah, it wouldn't kill me as a stopgap. Yeah, I remember his name was brought up. Halak, I can't believe he's 37 already. Wow.
Yeah.
Yaroslav Halak. But 37. I don't know about that either.
That's who I meant to say when I said. So someone can correct me. I'm sure there's some internet. Andrei Pavlich is 6'3". Sorry, no. Yaroslav Halak is one of the 3 goalies that are under 6 feet. Halak, I think is. I think Halak's 5'11".
Yeah, yep, that's what I'm seeing here. Yeah, as long as it's accurate. Yeah, 5'11". Koskinen 6'7", though. No, I'm kidding.
He's going back to the KHL. He already announced, or he's going back to Europe. He signed a deal.
Oh yeah, yep, I forgot about that. That was just recently, right?
It was kind of after they had flamed out, after they got eliminated, and then he announced shortly thereafter that he signed in Europe.
They got absolutely swept out of there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yep, just like that's like shades of the 92 Campbell Conference Final. They got swept by the Blackhawks, I believe. Yep, way back in the day. the Blackhawks, and then they got swept by Pittsburgh. Oh, what a mess! No, that was kind of funny.
Well,
but
the divisional things that
go ahead.
I mean, let's face it, the divisional things put them in the place where they were, anyways. No way, Edmonton makes
come
it.
Out, yeah.
No way Edmonton makes it to the Western Conference Final if they had to fight through the Central.
No, they would have gotten knocked out by St. Louis.
Probably.
Yeah, they would have knocked out by St. Louis or Minnesota. God willing, we'd actually win a playoff series again.
Hey, can we go to the Pacific?
Mm-hmm.
It almost makes you wish you could.
My God, did that? Yeah, that'd be so cool.
Get relegated to the Pacific Division.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do in Europe when you suck, you get relegated.
Oh yeah, David, that's our turn right now. We're gonna go to the West Final every year.
Pacific Division, baby! Woo!
Pacific Division champs.
right alongside our Northwest Division championship banner.
Mm-hmm.
Our only banner that we've really earned.
Yep. Except for the fans, though. You know, the fans. Before that, one fan sat down in the building. Yeah, I hate those kind of things.
That's so cringy, man. That's so cringy.
Yeah. It's dumb. It's dumb.
I thought it was cheese the moment it happened. I remember going and rolling my eyes, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, me too.
God.
It's cute and everything, but we're Brian Hayward now. We're like the last.
Oh my God!
He might have been
Brian
the last North Star to wear number 1.
Brian Hayward.
Look what I've done, right?
Well, he's still annoying as hell to hear when he's doing the broadcast with the Ducks. He's such a homer over there.
He's one of their. Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
Oh, you ready to talk about coaches?
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. You said Peter DeBoer, John Tortorella. Peter DeBoer, of course, to the Dallas Stars. Yep. John Tortorella to the Philadelphia Flyers. All right, so let's.
We know that's going to be a tire fire.
Yes, gas, kerosene, I don't know, fireworks on July 4th.
Oh, God.
Paul Maurice, Mr. I quit on my team to the
Florida Panthers.
Where'd he go to? Florida, of all teams. The Florida Panthers, they tell Andrew Brunette, thanks for the best record in the NHL. Adios, amigo. Why? Why did they do that?
I don't understand that one. They really must have felt it was his. They really must have felt that he got out-coached. That's the only thing I can think of. The management or the ownership looked at it and it must have said, he was in over his head, but you were playing against the two-time
John Cooper. Yeah.
You were playing against the two-time Stanley Cup champion.
Mm-hmm.
But to Florida, that's all that matters. That's probably, that's their local nemesis, right? That's like the Gophers versus Iowa in football. That's your measure right there.
Yeah. Oh God.
And you can't.
The team that kills us every time.
But I mean, you can't fake it, right? You either win or you lose to them, and most of the time you've been losing. And until you beat that, that's the perception that people have. And I would have given him the job, but obviously Florida didn't feel the same way. Bob Bugner just got canned today. By
from San
Jose.
Jose, yeah.
So there's another coaching spot that's going to be open, which is interesting. Also, Rick Bowness also happened today. Supposedly they're finalizing the deal for him to be on a 1-year contract in Winnipeg. A lot of people believe that Winnipeg really wanted Barry Trotz to come back to Manitoba, and some people believe that this is basically meant to be like a placeholder, we're keeping the bench warm for you, Barry.
Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine being Rick Bowness? Oh my God. But I guess maybe he's accepting it. I don't know. Just hey, I'll take the money.
Well,
that's weird.
Maybe that's karma for the Riley Tufte thing.
That could be.
Remembers that where Riley Tufte bought 40-some tickets for his NHL debut, and Rick Bowness scratched him against the Wild. Yeah, that's an asshole move.
Yeah, that is a huge asshole move.
Yep. I think
Wow.
Riley Tufte just sitting on your fourth line would not have determined the outcome of the game. Give me a break.
No, it wouldn't have hurt him. No.
I mean, just a little bit of communication there, Coach, might have helped.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Then, yep. And then Bruce Cassidy goes to the Las Vegas Knights. Yep. Bruce Cassidy, from formerly of Boston Bruins, who went to the Cup final and lost to St. Louis, apparently.
Yeah.
Luke Richardson. Yep. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Cassidy only won. He only went to the what was it, like Eastern Conference final, like for 6 years.
Yeah. They were always in it. So there's something there.
Yeah, weird.
Unfortunately, they didn't get over the hump, but yeah.
Seemed like an odd.
Yeah, how they let him go.
Seemed like an odd move, especially since like I want to say like the week before, Don Sweeney, their GM, said he's absolutely safe here, and then a week later, the axe falls.
Yeah, that's hockey. Yeah.
Yep.
Things change so quickly.
No doubt.
And then Luke Richardson. Yeah.
Yep. The guy who
Is he going to the Islanders, right?
Yep, he was North Stars fans may remember that was the player that Dino Cicerelli hit in the head with a stick, and then got arrested for assault charges, even though it was an on ice incident.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a precedent thing. Like, can you get charged with criminally for something you do on the ice? I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that got brought up again after the Steve Moore incident with Todd Bertuzzi.
Yeah.
Whether you could call that
about 20
as
years
assault.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think you kind of can.
Yeah, it was like a sucker punch from behind where he pretty much
He punched him,
crippled the
punched
guy.
him in the back of the head, and ended his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was terrible.
Yep, Dominic Moore's older brother.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Anyways,
But yep. Oh, go ahead.
trying to think what other. Oh, Derek Lalonde got hired with the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh yeah, yep. There was another one.
So I think my question was, which coach do you think will have the most success, and which one do you think will be fired first?
Yep. You pretty much read it out perfectly there. Most success is probably, well, I want to say Bruce Cassidy, but I don't know what's going on in that locker room. But to me, it's set up for Bruce Cassidy in a much better way, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, there's good players there as long as they stay freaking healthy, and as long as the chemistry improves. Like last year was, I don't know, last year was not good. It wasn't pretty. Pete DeBoer in Dallas, I just don't know. Obviously, some of their better players are getting older, more injured. Obviously, they have a nice young star player in Robertson. Paul Maurice, well, he's set up really nicely. Go ahead.
I was going to say in Dallas, you got Miro Heiskanen and Jason Robertson are pretty good young talent. But you're 100% right about some of that aging parts of it, which Jamie Benn and Tyler Sagan are not aging gracefully.
They're not good anymore.
And to be quite honest, another player that's kind of showing his age is Ryan Suter.
Yep. And I feel we feel so bad, don't we?
I've heard a lot of complaining from Dallas fans who now they regret even the contract they gave him already, and I'm like, oops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that took 1 year, less than a year, probably a couple of months into the contract, into the season. But yep, like Paul Maurice is set up pretty nicely. It could work out, but he's not, he's had some success. He seems like the kind of guy that doesn't get over the hump to me.
Yeah.
And then Florida, the one coach, they finally won a bleeping playoff series for the first time in 25 years, and they just pushed him aside. So that was nice of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul Maurice, maybe. Yeah.
Well, Paul Maurice is an acquired taste. I think he's been around it for a long time, but I don't see he does have a Stanley Cup to his credit, but I don't see a guy that is gonna. I don't know. I just don't see a guy that's either gonna bring something new to the table or make them any better than what Brunette would have. Burnett to me was more represented new blood than did Paul Maurice.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just too many retreads, and then one of the ultimate retreads. Yeah, like he's been very much one. Paul Maurice has, but probably the ultimate retread and the ultimate shelf life, going to a place that's blown to bits after it looked so promising just 3 years ago, right? From Ron Hextall, the general manager, everybody lost patience with because he was just so bad, right?
Yeah.
He put together something good, didn't he? He had something good going.
They had good prospects and everything. It's all been gutted. It's just been
It's been gutted. And then Chuck Fletcher and Mike Yo and all that cute stuff. And what was the other? Torch. There's Torch and Torts and all those guys.
Yeah.
Now it's from Torch to Torts.
Yep.
You're bringing John Tortorella.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's too funny. So as for the,
I think he's the first.
Which one? Which one will be fired?
You think he's the first fired?
Yes. Yep. And I think he goes with Chuck Fletcher. I thought Fletcher was going to be gone this spring. I really did.
I would agree with you.
I was actually shocked.
I would agree with you too.
Yeah.
I figured after a Mike. I mean, not that was really Yo's fault. They were already a tire fire before then. I mean, it was Alain Vigneault couldn't do it. And now you're going with a guy who's a known hard ass. The only reason you go for it is because I guess you probably felt that things have been too easy on the players, so now you're trying to bring in the guy that's going to be more of a dictator. And I just don't think that flies very far. And Philadelphia is a big enough media market like New York is, where he'll have plenty of microphones in his face to ask him questions, and Tortorella will have plenty of opportunities to put his foot in his mouth. So from a soundbite standpoint, it'll probably be what you expect, which is a lot of outspoken statements and
cursing. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't seem like a team that's it's a team that's getting worse, not better. And that doesn't bode well for a guy with a temper.
No, it's the perfect storm for things to go the absolute wrong direction. So as we'll move on to the next one, do you expect the 2022-23, because that was obviously a big one there, Minnesota Wild to be better or worse than the 2021-2022 club? And please give reasons for your answer. I think, unfortunately, worse, at least at the moment. Of course, things could change here in the next couple months with prospects emerging, this and that. But right now, I mean, you lose the 85-point player because you lose Kevin Fiala. We're not sure how well Boldy's going to respond to that. Who's going to replace that spot on the roster? Not obviously, 85 points don't just pop in out of nowhere. So hopefully maybe a Marco Rossi can come in and be ready to go and play very well with that line. Actually, they're talking about like Russo again. He's talking about the possibility of Rossi with Goudreau and I almost said Fiala, but Boldy, pardon me. That might end up being something. It really might. It's just a matter of will it. So right now I'll have to say worse because they had a franchise best record and I don't see them reaching that this year.
Well, the other thing that maybe isn't said or maybe people don't care, but I would be that if Rossi is now already been being talked about not as a center and as a winger, doesn't that kind of make the pick a little bit of it kind of hurts the pick that it was?
Yeah.
He was expected to be a center. And that's another center. That's another center that apparently is. I mean, he apparently is. It's better to play him on the wing with Freddie Goudreau as his center than playing as center. That kind of hurts, I must say. And being a winger, obviously he'll probably have less responsibilities than he would if he played center. But in a way that's kind of, I'm not going to say it means that he's a bust. but it does hurt in a certain way because he was expected to be the future center, a top 6 center.
Mm-hmm.
So again, all the more reason for the draft to try to pick centers, because clearly you're not betting on one person being a center as it is. So, but no, I would agree with that, with the sentiments you have. I mean, the $64 question, or the elephant in the room, is how are they gonna somehow replace, or at least replace some of the offense that they're automatically going to be losing with Fiala, no longer being here. And internally, that looks to be a giant challenge, especially given the fact that with the exception of Kirill Kaprizov, you had a lot of other guys that had career years, and as they say, dare you to repeat it, and it seems unlikely that some of them, like a Ryan Hartman, I would not bet money that he's going to score 34 goals again.
No, that's probably it.
Same thing, like even Marcus Foligno would be tough. I think it'd be hard pressed to replicate those totals. To me, that's what you do, is you would go through the lineup, and I'm not saying like we have to do that, but I'm saying, like, if as a fan, look through the lineup and ask yourself, can they do what they did last year? And I would strongly guess that most people are going to be saying no far more often than they're going to be saying yes. Kaprizov,
I think you're right, yeah.
Eriksson Ek, Boldy, I'd say yes, but then after that, it's probably a lot of no's.
Yep, most of them have to be.
Matt Zuccarello is going to even have a hard time doing what he did last year. Especially now that without Fiala, I think it could be argued we're now a one-line team. Where we have one good scoring line, and then hopefully we can somehow scrabble out a second scoring line somehow.
And then hopefully the Grief line can do what they continue to do, but I don't think the Grief line will lead you to a cup. No.
No, and they're
obviously
they're more of a second. They're supplemental scoring. They're not going to be what carries you.
No.
And
just kind of supplemental, yeah.
Yep. So that I would say I would agree with your sentiments on that. Probably should go on to the next one.
Yeah, nope, that's good. Yep, and now we jump into a interesting off-topic one. Recently, a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, Shredder's Revenge, got released to positive reviews, as it was an homage to the SNES classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. Did you play either game? If so, which turtle was your favorite go-to? I did play Turtles in Time. Obviously, I haven't played the new release one yet. I should try it soon. It sounds pretty cool. Donatello. It's got to be Donatello as a go-to, with the big bow and the range, and I just he was awesome. He was absolutely awesome.
He's very good. Yep.
Yeah, and as a kid, I loved the speed of Raphael.
Okay.
Because he was a little bit quicker with his weapon.
Okay.
But as the years went on, I just kind of adjusted more to Donatello. He was always the safe go-to, wasn't he?
Yeah.
A lot of us classic gamers would go with Donnie, I think.
I was a Leonardo guy. I was Leonardo.
Oh, yeah.
I felt he kind of. I felt he was like the most well-rounded turtle. Like he didn't have the reach that Donatello had, which was always a big advantage for him, even though he was slower. But I felt like he was like kind of middle of the road speed, middle of the road power, but there was no like weakness to him really. He was like a wild player, good but not great. Right?
Yeah.
And yet that made it. That was why he was kind of always my go-to turtle, typically. But no, I have not played Shredder's Revenge either. I have it on pre-order right now, but I've seen the whole game. It looks. If you enjoyed Turtles in Time, you're absolutely gonna love Shredder's Revenge, because it's they made the gameplay just about the same. The stages look great. They brought a lot of really cool characters that Apart from just Bebop and Rocksteady and those kind of villains and Krang.
Yeah.
They brought in a bunch
Classics.
of other characters from the latter parts of the cartoon's history, and I don't know. It'll give you all kinds of retro nostalgia that you could want. So I just was curious if you had played it, because it is.
No.
Looks great though.
Sounds like something to look up on YouTube in a little while after.
Yep.
So yeah, like tonight when I'm relaxing. So we'll go on to the next one. New York Rangers scratched Capo Caco in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. He's a former high draft pick that has struggled through the few seasons. Should the Minnesota Wild kick the tires on him, or wouldn't I be interested? I'd definitely be interested. And yeah, what's up with those high-end picks in New York? Capo Caco, and even Lafreniere hasn't really, I don't know, he hasn't really gotten started, really, in my opinion, either. Really, off to a great start, really, to be quite fair.
I thought Lafreniere was better in the playoffs this year than Capo Caco.
Yeah.
The thing with Capo Caco is he's an RFA. So if you're gonna trade, you'd have to give him like 3 picks, I think. So that that'd be rough. At least if you're gonna offer sheet him, that's what you'd have to do. That'd be terrible. I'm not an offer sheet guy, but he's a winger. Again, a player who might be want some new scenery, because they very much have their identity with Panarin and Zibanejad and Kreider and even Lafreniere seemed to be coming more into his own this year. You started to see a little bit of what made him a first overall pick. They got a lot of UFAs.
At least he was out there, yeah.
They got a lot of UFAs, especially at forward, so they're definitely going to be doing some reshaping this year. But I don't know, they also had a lot of youth or younger guys on the blue line, and I don't know if they would be. You probably would have to consider flipping a high-end pick or a prospect to probably maybe get that deal to happen. But I don't know. I just wondered if you had any curiosity on a guy who was a pretty highly touted prospect at one point.
Yeah, number 2 overall pick. Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely something to be interested in. It's just that, what would you have to give up? It sounds like quite a bit, unfortunately, even at this stage. So, yeah, but it's not like the Sam Bennett situation yet, where it's a little later on.
Yeah.
So, we'll probably have to wait, unfortunately. And then maybe by then he'll hit stride, is what the word I was trying to get into earlier.
Yeah.
Now I'm losing where I'm at here. Okay. So now we talk about Sean Monahan. Would we basically want to kick the tires on him as he's recovering? You're saying, the Athletic reported Sean Monahan's recovering from the second hip injury of his career. Since I follow the Flames closely, should the Wild inquire about him, and would he be willing to retain some salary or not interested? 2 years ago, I'd be jumping all over that one because he's like an 80-point center, basically, right?
Yep.
So, and he plays center, and we've been talking about Sean Monahan quite a bit, actually, off and on the last couple of years here. But yeah, unfortunately, it seems like he's hitting a wall physically, which is a little scary. And damn, I'd love to have him, but it kind of depends how much how much we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But we certainly are desperate for a real center.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we are jumping into the whole salary cap situation as well. So it's kind of a tweener for me. Honestly, it's like almost again it's looking at kind of like probably. God, I'm having a hard time with this one. Having a hard time deciding on this one because of I'd love to. I'm intrigued by him, but again, like how much is it going to cost us?
Mm-hmm. And like you said, though, there's a very realistic risk factor there. I mean, as they say, or what is it? The hands go first and then the legs or whatever. Well, hip injury, that could definitely affect your mobility, and there's a good chance that you could maybe be a shadow of what you used to be. And would you want to move a bunch of assets for a guy that sounds like he could be near, I don't want to say circling the toilet, might sound a little bit harsh, but he might be towards that tail end of his career where it's closer to the end than it is the beginning. And like you said, you maybe make that deal 2 years ago, but now it's probably maybe just the risk factor's too high.
Yeah, and we're talking a 6.375 salary.
Yeah.
So again, that's 6 million. Pardon me, 6,375,000. I should make it a little clearer. He's 27. He's not that old. It's just he's taking up a pretty big chunk of Calgary's cap actually. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate. I'd love to have him, but we're kind of stuck with the whole salary cap right now. That's the thing. It's like we're just stuck.
Yeah.
Isn't that the safe thing to say?
It's true, though.
Calgary's got a ton. Yeah, yep. It is true. Calgary's got a ton coming off the books. Wow, they could make a lot of moves if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, some. Maybe I'll stay off them, right?
No, obviously there's been a lot of rumors about Johnny Gaudreau and stuff. And did he?
Yeah. New Jersey, yep.
But one would think they would want to try to keep him, all things being what they are. They have Matt Tkachuk as an RFA, Mangiapane as an RFA. Those are two guys that, all three of those guys are crucial to their success. I mean,
yeah.
And if they want to maintain what they've built, they're going to want to keep all three of them around if they can. Those are huge core pieces to their offense being what it was. That was a team that I felt was maybe the biggest disappointment. They were. With next to the Wild, I felt that was a team that way underachieved. I honestly thought when we played them that they were almost like a better version of the Blues, where they seemed to be absolutely stifling defensively, and then of course had enough skill and firepower up front that they could just sit there and bide their time and then, wait for you to make a mistake and then pounce on you. And, them losing out to the Oilers was like, really?
Yeah, that was stupid. Something just went wrong. I mean, all of a sudden it was just goal after goal after goal. They couldn't stop anybody during that the first game when they blew them. They looked like they were blowing them out, and then suddenly they really weren't.
Yep.
That 15-goal night, 9-6.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So that was pretty wild. Yeah. So, okay, we'll jump into the next one. Looks like probably for sake of time, we better keep moving.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get phone calls, unfortunately. So Brian Herrera's saying, it's my own fault. Brian Herrera's saying, what old games do you think would have done better with today's gaming technology than when it came out? That you could go all over the place. A lot of the Sega CD games that were really good, like the Lunar games, would, obviously better gaming technology, this and that. As long as the story stayed the same and the music stayed the same, that would be awesome. Because otherwise, I don't like the way when things are modernized, a lot of times these days, it seems like they just drop in value, like majorly, and it's insanely frustrating. At least just in my opinion. But I'll go with Sega CD games like Lunar 1, Lunar 2.
Okay. Games from the past that would benefit from modern technology. I think one game that I would like to see how they would do it now, and maybe this is something you would do with like the Oculus, like the virtual reality. What if you made Paperboy?
Oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
So like you're doing like you're the kid on the bicycle, and you're in a virtual world now. And I think that would be an interesting experience, because you'd have to ride your bike, and then try to throw these papers while, of course, all the things that happen in Paperboy happen, right? And even though today, like newspapers are not a big thing, I think that would be a really fascinating way to see it played. Where, it's one thing when you're seeing it like from the at least from the arcade perspective, where it's like an isometric view of things. Now you're the kid on the bike, and you're the one. To me, I think that would be really fascinating.
That would be kind of cool, I think. It'd be interesting to see the difference, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, it might feel a little bit different when you have the dog chasing your bike, or the Grim Reaper showing up, or the
I'd like that.
or like the house like from Paperboy 2. It looks like a medieval fortress, and you got the gargoyles shooting fire at you. Or the other fortress one with the cannons blasting away at you. Yeah,
that'd be quite entertaining.
I think it would be a pretty sweet game, actually.
Yeah, it'd be hilarious.
Yeah, someone should make
it happen.
Someone should make it happen.
That's a nifty sleeper idea there. So we'll jump into Jay Bushy.
Sure.
He says, "How do you think the How do you think the Wild will replace Fiala's production, and who do you think will?" Well, how do they replace it? Nothing immediately. Obviously, with hopefully certain draft picks panning out, it's the way I can look at it right now. Pending free agents, signing somebody off of the free agent pool, I think is impossible at this point. It would definitely have to be somebody like are you ready for this? Probably not a huge surprise, Matt Boldy. Matt Boldy's the closest thing,
Yep.
I think, right now out of the young guys, and obviously a former line mate. It's Matt Boldy. He's the closest thing, and it's him taking that next step. And can he do that? That's the hope, and hope and pray that he can do that. Can he get to this? Because last year, what was it, mathematically, I was kind of doing it in my head. He would have been close to 70 points if he was able to play a full season. Because obviously he missed significant time with the ankle, at the beginning, and then ankle again later. Yeah, he would have had about almost 70 points, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So,
but that's
it's Boldy. Yeah.
But that's also based on having Fiala there.
Yep.
That's
the crappy part.
That to me is that's the other part of
the
this.
Creme de la creme.
Well,
Sorry.
Depending on how you view it, if you view it's a parasitic relationship where Boldy or Fiala was the parasite to Boldy, or if you think it's a symbiotic relationship where one benefited both, like they both benefited each other, that's going to be what we maybe kind of find out. Because, you're going to, Boldy gets a lot of points because the guy who he's passing it to buries the puck. It's just like back in the day, Pierre-Marc Bouchard. Well, he didn't really take off till he had Brian Rolston as his line mate, right? Kind of similar situation. Well, can Boldy make the offense happen without him? The other person I'd say that might be not so to say a replacement, because I think the 85 points are going to be impossible just to replace completely, would be Tyson Jost. If he's going to launch, he better launch now. And
please.
And my hope is that he just gets the opportunity to do it. And then, of course, the other one would be Marco Rossi. Could he be the person that is the symbiotic relationship between him and Boldy, which they did have really good chemistry in Iowa, which I think one would think that would be a logical combination. Two young guys that have played together a little bit, they know each other a little bit, and can they create enough offense? And so to me, those would be your most likely candidates for replacing it. Otherwise,
it's a kind of a group effort. Yeah,
it's probably going to have to be best done by a committee, as opposed to one person just. Well, don't worry, I got that. I'll take it all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it'd be a committee thing, because how you had obviously Boldy with Fiala. Now it's going to be Boldy with somebody else working together, and then God willing, there you go. If not, like I'm saying, God willing, not like it's not like it's guaranteed to happen, but if it does, there you go. And Tyson Jost, hopefully he can show something that he didn't really show a whole lot last year, but there's still still something there. Still a possibility. He's young enough. So that's the hope. Those guys kind of working together, creating something.
But the key to me, though, for Jost, though, is he's got to have the opportunity. You got to try it. And by trying it, does it
leave him down? Yeah.
Well, to me, to expect him to just replace it while he's playing on the fourth line, playing fourth line minutes, that's setting him up to fail and also putting an unrealistic expectation upon him. But if you're going to do it, then you're going to try him and you're going to keep him there for 10, 12 games and hope that he shows signs that he can. If you do that and you don't just, it can't be something where it's like a quick twitch thing like, well, Evison throws him out there for a couple shifts each game. That's not going to probably do it. To me, then you're not really giving it then you're not really giving it a chance, in my opinion. So, to me, it's also kind of incumbent on the organization to find out what they really have in him. And if you find out, because otherwise, if you're expecting that to just magically happen through osmosis on the fourth line, playing fourth line minutes with fourth line mates, I think that's really not fair to him or fair to the evaluation, because
no, it's not.
It's just not the same.
Yeah, you don't want to leave him down there because he'll never really truly reach his potential. Just like leaving Boldy down on the, if you left Boldy down in the bottom six, you wouldn't really get anywhere with him either.
Exactly. He'd be playing a completely different role. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and those are the mistakes that Wild coaches and general managers did in the old days. They leave guys down there way too long, and it take them an extra 5 years to develop, which is stupid.
And then blame them for not producing when they were not in a role to produce. Like
what's wrong with this guy? He sucks,
Kaula, Mike Yeo always had a burr under his saddle for that kid, and he kept messing with him, kept complaining about him. He was one of the few players that he would complain about publicly. Otherwise, he would never say anything bad about other people, even though they were maybe slacking off more. And even when he'd have a good night, he's like, well, I need to see more. Well, what the hell? He's playing fourth line minutes. What do you expect him to do? I don't
dance on the moon.
To me, you have to be fair with that if you want to be taken seriously. And like I said, I hope they give him that opportunity so we find out. And I think in this season, it really will be a situation where you need to be willing to try that stuff, because I think we're going to have to be creative if we're going to expect to be as good as we were last year. You're going to have to be creative, because it's not going to be as I think last year we kind of had things more or less set. I don't necessarily say it's set in stone, but we pretty much had an idea of what the lineup was going to look like from night to night. And with the exception of one line and or probably our first and our third line, it can go a lot of. A few players might be there, but there's going to be definitely some guys in pencil, not in pen anymore, because you don't know who you're gonna try to find something that works.
Yep, no doubt about it. So we'll move on to the next one again. Tom Haynes says, so is General Manager Bill Guerin basically stating he did not want teams to get into a bidding war for a player that just broke the team's single-season points record. I hope this is a misquote of some sorts. So, okay, this is from Michael Russo. Guerin said he felt it was a fair deal with the Kings that he didn't want to BS anybody and wait till the draft and leverage teams against each other, felt this was the right deal. So you can combine this tweet with your final tweet, and then that's actually the end of fan interaction, was how you were saying, should Minnesota Wild fans be mad at that GM Bill Guerin didn't do more to win on the Fiala trade because it's about bleeping winning. Yeah, it's about effing winning. Shouldn't it be in trades too? And yeah, you do want to win trades, don't you? The point was that he's maybe you don't want to try to cheat somebody. And I agree with that. You don't want to like try to be a complete rip-off, like in fantasy, this or that, like trading like your 19th best player for the star of the other team. Like that's horse crap. I used to hate getting trade offers like that. So I get that because there are GMs that are jerks like that, I'm sure, or at least have been in the past. So, God, that's annoying. But yeah, to come ahead is okay. And this does feel like we're kind of flatlining, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think kind of going back to a point we made earlier, I think there is reason to question why you wouldn't want to make a bidding war happen. Now, I understand there's two sides to this. Like you can, if you feel you got, think of it like the stock market. If you feel you have the hottest stock to sell, that's probably a good idea because you're going to crank up your price that you're going to get for it. But if you feel that maybe there's other stock out there that might be more attractive to yours, you might fear that, well, this might be the best offer we'll see, because once they see this other stuff, they're not going to want what I'm selling anymore, or they're not going to give me as much for what I'm selling anymore. And it felt to me like he kind of took the first offer that he felt like, for lack of a better like analogy, like the first offer that he felt that was fair and that he could live with, and he took it. Okay, a first round, the 19th, another mid-round pick, and we like Faber, we'll take it, fine. When maybe he should have said, okay, we'll take Faber, but we also want a center. Or something like that, or we'll never know what those conversations are. But if they really wanted Fiala, who's like you just said, as an 85-point scorer, then don't you want a forward to replace in return? Because otherwise, then you just lose a complete roster spot player for a draft pick that won't probably be ready at least for a couple years. It's not like it's gotta be a while. It's not like we're getting a second overall pick and it's a player you can just throw in there right now. He's probably going to take. Yeah. Whoever it is probably going to take a little bit of time.
Yep, it might take eternity. For all we know. I mean, but it shouldn't be too long. Maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 years at the very least. But with that said, I think that should pretty much be a wrap.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I can't thank you enough for jumping on board. This is a huge show, but might as well say if Sinbin can get away with it, maybe I can too. Because Sinbin, it's like every week, it's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then an occasional 3-hour megasode. So this is State of the Wild. It's I've never had a State of the Wild under 2 hours in the last decade. So way back in the old days, like 2009, they were an hour, and it's like, wow, 1 hour. Yeah. Dang, that's big, Well, that's back when I used to think podcasts had to be 30 minutes, and those days are gone.
Well, there's a lot to discuss, and I'm sorry if I was too long-winded.
Oh, no, it's okay. No, I thought you did a great job, and there is a lot to discuss. We just traded Fiala. We got the draft coming up. All kinds of ups and downs and positives and negatives and all that good stuff. Moving parts, as we like to say. So, fans turning on the G. Okay, sorry. No, kind of. Some fans might be turning on the GM a little bit, but that's all up to whoever.
I don't know if this is okay, but I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Final statement. Yep.
Well, I was just gonna say that on the draft, on the first round, obviously the first round's coming up this Thursday. I was gonna host, to anybody that wants to join in, a Google Hangout where we kind of just watch the draft together and we can react and talk about it as it happens. If anyone wants to do that, I'll post a link on Twitter at Crease and Assist. I've already posted all my draft preview stuff, including also a movement tracker from the NHL Central Scouting list where, I don't know, it's kind of a color-coded list. It may not be super fancy, but I got links to every single player to their Elite Prospects page so you can look at it. So if you're
That's
wondering who these
awesome.
people are, that's the real tedious part. Trust me, it takes forever to do that. That's like 200 plus players linking their damn little linky thing to that. But
Oh my God,
yeah, it's
yeah.
very tedious. But I think it's worth it. But
Mm-hmm.
no, like I said, we might as well. I think draft isn't a great time to have the conversation. And if I realize we all have busy schedules, and if you're planning on watching from home, you can jump in or jump out if you wanted to, with whatever life has taken you. But if you want to be there to talk and hear people's reactions to the Wild's pick and other teams' picks, it should be a lot of fun. So I'll throw that link out there. Hopefully we can get some people in there, and it'll be a good time.
Yeah, definitely check it out, and I'll retweet it at the very least, and we'll see. I'll try to be there as well.
Awesome. I really look forward to it. And thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. And wishing all of you listeners a wonderful few weeks, as we'll definitely have some things to talk about. Maybe another trade happens. We'll see. But we'll talk about that when the time comes. And, of course, we'll talk about the draft picks we acquire when the time comes. Until then, have a nice summer.